All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third annual Prospects Live mock draft. Ian, welcome in, man. I'm excited for year three. I'm excited to get 38 of the most esteemed writers and analysts from around the country all in the same room to do a little MLB draft talk. How you feeling, man?
Awesome. I feel great, man. This event's super special to me overall. This was the first ever event I did working with Prospects Live. So to be a part of this for the third year back and to be hosting with you, Joe, just makes me happy, and I'm ready for a fun night, man.
Absolutely, man. Let's talk a little bit about where this night is going to go. So I think you and I would both agree that there's probably some tiers in this MLB draft, in this class. I would say maybe 1 through 6, 1 through 7. We expect to go fairly chalk. I think those guys have kind of separated themselves a little bit. But how do you view this class? How do you view the top? Where does the cutoff? What are some guys that you're excited to hear their name called?
I mean, I think when you're especially looking at the top of the high school class right now, I think we're going to hear these guys called in the first 5 picks. When you're looking at guys like Elijah Green, Drew Jones, Jackson Holliday, who's just exploded up boards over the last 6 months, give or take. And I think that's the guy I'm most looking forward to hear where his name's called tonight. I mean, Jackson Holliday has probably been the hottest name on the draft market right now. I mean, he's been tearing up the draft board. So I think that's a guy who I think we're going to hear maybe in the first 3 picks, maybe pick 1-1. I don't know. So I think that's a guy I'm really looking forward to.
All right, so I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire here. We're going to have Eric here join us, Birdland Eric. He's been with us every year for a while. We'll have him here in about 10 minutes when the draft starts. Baltimore always is weird, for lack of a better word. They're weird. They walk to the beat of their own drum. If it was your pick, are you going Drew Jones? Is he a cut above the rest for you, or would you kind of finagle with your money a little bit?
I mean, if you're not overthinking it, I think Drew Jones is the way to go. I think he's clear-cut the best player in this draft. I mean, I really don't think we'll see him going to go 1-1 tonight. I'm just saying that now. But if the money's on it, I'm taking Drew Jones 1-1. But it's the Orioles. It's going to get weird. So I'm ready to see what Eric has for us.
You know, I give Eric credit. Last year, we had him on to do the Orioles pick 2021. And
I remember this.
He took Colton Cowser.
He was the first one.
He was the guy that said, you know what, I don't think I'm overthinking this. Baltimore loves an underslot. They love a college outfielder, and they went with Colton Cowser out of Sam Houston State. So it wouldn't surprise me if he threw us off a little bit and went with a Gavin Cross or something interesting like that.
I've honestly seen a name that he threw up on a different mock recently that could be a very big surprise tonight if we see that again. So I think it should be a fun night.
Here's the thing, man. This mock, every year we do it, it's not about doing what you think the team's going to do. It's what you're going to do, and that's what I respect the most about Eric. Let's talk a little bit about draft names you like. So you've seen a lot of these guys. You were all over the country. You were all over the Southeast for much of the spring and the summer. What names are you expecting to hear in the first round tonight, and who gets you excited?
I mean, of course, we're going to mention my guy that I saw a lot this year in Florida, and he's really jumped up the draft boards. A name I might hear in the first round, that's Roman Anthony. We've talked about him a lot, me and you, Joe. And I talk about him all the time on Twitter. Everybody knows that. So that's a guy I would like to see in this first round. Sterling Thompson's another guy from the University of Florida who I really like. The data is extremely good. He plays multiple positions, and I think he's a guy who could be a good fit for a lot of teams in the back end of this first round. Those are 2 names I'm really high on who I could expect to see in this first round that maybe unexpected names a little bit.
Give me a quick critique on some of these injured college pitchers, because that's almost the talk of the town, right? It's kind of the narrative. The whole class. If you're looking at a guy like Kumar Rocker, you're looking at Connor Prelip, you're looking at Peyton Pallette, Reggie Crawford, Hunter Barco. I mean, the list is seemingly endless. How do you, as an evaluator, look at some of these players? Is it a huge turnoff? Is it a disqualifier for you, an elbow injury? Like, how do you view these injuries as it pertains to someone's draft stock?
I mean, even going back, we'll say just to start back with last year, I was a guy who's extremely high on Gunnar Hoagland going into the draft, post-injury, pre-injury. He was a guy. And I think that goes forward to what you like and what you've seen with these guys before the injury. A lot of these guys have a lengthy track record in college where they've shown the stuff. They've shown the ability to pitch. They've shown multiple pitches. Kumar Rocker, this specific instance is different. I don't know what we really expect to see out of Kumar. We saw another dominant guy who's playing in the independent league right now. Is he another guy who could be a full-time starter in the MLB? That's going to be remains to be seen. So it's really interesting. I think I have critiques for all the guys that are injured, but I think if you see enough when you're mentioning guys like Prelip and Carson Litzenu, who's not injured but missed most of the year for unfortunate circumstances, but those are guys that you could not look past, but I think there's enough clay to look back on when you're looking at some of these college arms.
All right, man, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. You did not see this coming, but I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Yeah,
I don't expect any different.
every year, guys fall. It happens every year. Kumar Rocker went 10. That was way further down the board than most people expected. I think, Brady House fell a little bit further than a lot of people expected. Not to single anyone out, but is there a player in this class that you think, at least in the public space, in the space of, writers and analysts and guys that just, follow this sort of thing, is there a guy in this class that you expect tonight, not in the real draft, but tonight might tumble a little bit?
I think a guy who could fall, a couple guys. I think obviously you mentioned injured pitchers. I'm not really sure what to think of where Dylan Lesko is going to go tonight. I know there's a lot of guys high on him early in the early part of the draft, but I don't know if anybody's going to take that risk in the first top 10 picks. So he's a guy, if he falls past 10 or 15, it could get kind of scary to where he ends up. And another guy I really want to see could maybe take a tumble is Daniel Susek out of Arizona, the catcher. There's a lot of things to love there, but there's also a lot of things that you can't really look past. So he's a guy I think that could turn off a bunch of teams tonight. Maybe not in the real draft, but he could fall a little bit this evening.
For sure. Okay, now a riser, a guy that is hardly on any boards. Does Cade Horton get selected tonight, Ian? The Oklahoma ace out of nowhere.
I think there's a good chance of it. I mean, he's probably the hottest name in college baseball right now after the performance he had in the College World Series. He's got a diabolical slider. He's got upper 90s fastball. He's got a starter's body. I mean, it's really hard to pass up what you're looking at right now. There's really no track record of success like he's shown recently, but teams take chances all the time. I think there's a real chance he could go in the first 38 picks tonight.
All right, I'm going to throw a quick comment on the board, and this can be a question for you before we get started in the show. Angels only pitchers in 2021. Only. First pick here. I think it's pick 13, maybe 12. We'll get into it in a minute. Is it a pitcher?
I think this is the first chance we'll see Kumar Rocker even mentioned. I don't know if he goes there at 12, but I think, yes, it's a pitcher at 12.
Okay. All right, so I did want to take one opportunity before this thing starts. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes here. Okay. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Prospects Live Patreon. The work that we do on this site is, in a lot of ways, a passion project. We love amateur baseball. We love high school ball. We love college ball. We love evaluating these players from the time that they turn, 15 or 16 all the way until they're drafted. And then obviously our minor league coverage requires a lot of eyes. It requires a lot of work. And we all do work very, very hard. I mean, all of these guys, I put out a tweet earlier, Will, Ian, Wyatt, Brandon, I'm forgetting a million guys, Brian, they're all going out to the fields multiple times. Daniel, they're all going out to the fields multiple times a week to get live looks so we can evaluate these players and really get a good idea of who they are, what they're going to become. And that all dissolves into our fantasy coverage and our minor league coverage. So I will ask, if you haven't yet, at least consider subscribing to the Patreon. We would obviously appreciate it hugely. There's multiple levels from a free subscription to $2 to $10 to $20, and they all come with something more for your baseball knowledge. So we will put our Patreon on our Twitter tonight as a kind of a reminder to where to find that. But if you really do enjoy Prospects Live coverage, there's just more to be had. There's more to digest behind that Patreon wall. So certainly consider that. Absolutely. Ian, how about a quick over under? I want to throw out a couple of college shortstops. They are very popular, at least in the public space, and they seem to be really rising up industry boards as well, based on the people that I've spoken with. Let's start with pick 15. It's right in the middle of the first round. Okay. Zach Neto and Eric Brown. Over, under. Zach Neto, is he going before 15? Is he going after 15? And you can't push.
I believe he's going before 15.
And how about Eric Brown?
It's a tough question to ask me right now, but I think Eric Brown could be under the top 15 picks as well. I think that's a name. Excuse me, there. My cat just wants to jump onto the table in the middle of this, but yeah,
nice.
Yes, I think Eric Brown's a guy who teams are falling in love with on the private sector. He's not a extremely hot name in the public sense, but I think he's a guy that teams are falling in love with quickly. He has the numbers to back it up. He's shown batted ball data in the Cape Cod League. He tore up everything in Coastal this year, so I think that's a guy who could definitely be in the top 15 picks, especially if you're talking to me.
Love it. All right, so we're looking at about 3 minutes here until the draft starts. I just want some of your surface level thoughts here. What are some things that you're excited to see tonight? Are there any teams specifically that you are really intrigued to see which direction they go? Kind of where's your head at right now? You're representing the Miami Marlins tonight. This is not your only job. You've got a lot of responsibility. And the Marlins just opened up a scouting position, so this is good money for you.
A pretty prestigious one at that, but yes. But yeah, I think
tonight.
The Marlins may have some really good options available at 6 tonight, and I'm really excited to see who's there. There's some high school names who's on everybody's board at this pick. I think a couple of them guys may be gone, but I really think it's going to be a fun choice for me. I'm excited to see what the Orioles do at 1. Obviously, that's going to be an interesting thing, especially if I expect Eric to be himself. Then we're going to get something extremely fun, and he's always going to use his brain on it. Absolutely. I'm excited to see what Detroit does at 12. Brian Sikowski is a brilliant mind, so I know he's got his mind on a bunch of guys, and there's some guys that fit in that range that could be extremely fun in that system. That's just made a ton of strides over the last couple of years. Those are 2 teams I'm really looking forward to.
I would like to say, Huth, you need to chill out tonight, man. Trevor is running our socials tonight, and I'm not going to take this for 2 hours, okay? I do this once a year. The suit comes on, the hair goes up. I make sure that I look good for the audience, but I will not take this toward a slander, and I will not be objectified. You understand?
Not take this slander.
All right. We're just a couple minutes away from this thing. I say we rock and roll. What do you say? You ready to get ready? Ready to go?
Let's do it, man. Bring him in. Let's have some fun.
Let's kick into this. All right, let's welcome into the stream Mr. Eric Garfield. Eric, how you doing, man?
Great. Happy to be here. Thanks, guys. How are you?
Doing wonderful, brother.
We're good,
That's
man.
my dog.
Eric, so you're fine, dude. You're fine. So, Eric, big part of Orioles Hangout. Going to be representing the Orioles tonight with the first pick. Eric, who is the first pick? Baltimore Orioles. Where are you going?
There are a lot of ways we could go. A lot of excellent values and high talent level type players, but this is an opportunity that we need to maximize. So we're going to go with the best player available, not mess around, and take the outfielder from Wesleyan High, Drew Jones. And I'm as excited. Thank you very much.
Yes,
I'm as excited to like bring him in as we were to bring in Adley. So similar talent at 1-1. We're not going to mess around.
I dig it. Well, I'm actually going to welcome in one of our analysts here, Will Hofer. Will,
hey, buddy.
Will shot this.
How's it going, Eric?
So Will's been all over Georgia. He's been the one capturing a lot of our Drew Jones footage. Will, Drew Jones, the first overall pick. What do you think? What do you think of the player? What do you think of the pick?
I mean, like Ian said, just don't overthink it. This is we've had some guys that have risen up boards. I actually did notice, Eric, that in a recent mock you took Cam Collier number 1 overall, and I was kind of wondering if you were gonna double up on that. And this just goes to the point where we've seen guys rise up the boards and be in consideration at 1-1. But at the end of the day, we're looking at a guy that has true 5-tool across the board plus potential. This is the best player in the draft. This is the guy that's going to get the most money in the draft. And the last time the Orioles were in that position to have an opportunity to take the best player in the draft, they took Adley Rutschman. It's no different here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I did consider Cam, by the way.
I was waiting for Cam as well. That's where I thought where I was going to go, and the night was going to get real fun instantly. But you can't go wrong here.
It speaks to the duality of the approach here. You have to leave no stone unturned. There's no 100% certainty in this draft at any slot. You have to weigh all your options, and Cam's an option there. Jackson Holliday's an option there. Even like Brooks Lee's an option there. There's so many ways you can go when you have that much money, and you want to maximize the amount of value you get from that money. But this seems right.
Absolutely,
I agree.
Well, Eric, always a pleasure. I'm hoping next year when we bring you on, and it appears as though you will not be picking so early in the show. So
we got to get it right this time.
We got to get it right,
my man. Eric, we'll see you. Always love Eric Garfield, man. He always brings it. I was kind of hoping he was going to bring something a little crazy, just so
I thought it was Cam. That's why I didn't say it earlier. I thought it was going to be Cam for sure.
I thought so too, man.
You can't overthink it.
It's time to bring in one of the show favorites and another guy that we welcome to the show very early in the mock every single year. I hope that changes. Chris Welsh. What's going on, Chris? Is it Welsh is in the house?
What's up, guys? I was hoping he was going to go a different direction, too. I was sure hoping we were going to get crazy Orioles. I was hoping for Cam Colley, Brooks Lee, anything, but I didn't get it. How we doing, guys?
We're good, man. So is your board totally on fire? Picking number two?
No, not at all. No, I mean, if I'm being honest with you guys, two super tough spot here, Joe. What was I going to do when Drew Jones goes? I have to go back to the drawing board. Now, I had 2 picks. I had obviously 2 picks. Decision would have been the easiest thing on the planet for me had he gone any other direction. Drew Jones. I think we all know this. If the Orioles do anything else, the Diamondbacks will snap up Drew Jones. But I've had my second pick locked and loaded. And, based on a lot of mocks, I think it actually might be a surprise. So would you like me to make my pick?
Fire away, baby.
Already.
I am going to go with the Atlanta-based middle infielder, the Arizona State guy who's committed to Arizona State, Termar Johnson, who's going to play second base. I think there are a ton of reasons and a ton of other situations where guys could move. The Diamondbacks have looked at Elijah Green. I know they like Elijah Green. Jackson Hollidday has moved up boards. I've had some people in my ear personally that have been kind of close to the situation say the Diamondbacks are infatuated with Termar Johnson. It fits, not that you draft out of like complete necessity. It's something you would have to do, but they hopefully I might know if I'm having a connection issue.
No, you're good.
I don't think they would have to draft out of a crazy necessity, which is why, you can make a discussion out of Elijah Green or whatever. But they've got Corbin Carroll. They've got Alec Thomas. They just brought in Jordan Lawler, and you are potentially bringing in the top prep bat, maybe the best bat in this entire draft class as far as hit tool goes. There's plus power, 70 grade hit tool, maybe in the 60s as far as power goes. You've now got your middle infield set for the absolute future, and you don't have to really worry about speed that you're missing out. You got Corbin Carroll at the top. You've got Alec Thomas who's coming into his own. This is a situation where the Diamondbacks, I think if they make this move, you instantly become, probably into a top 5 as far as offensive talent goes for prospect systems, and the future is quite bright. Great pitching, great hitting. Termar Johnson, pretty easy pick, to be honest, for me. I know the Diamondbacks like it, and that is my pick.
Love it. Love it. This is a little bit of a wrench. You don't hear Termar's name mentioned too much in this spot. I'm going to throw it to Will first because Will has seen Termar a million times. But Ian, you've seen him a couple times too. So Will and Ian both briefly, what do you guys think of the pick?
Go ahead, Will.
All right. I like it. I think once you get past Drew, there is about 5 or 6 guys that all fit in this range, and Termar's one of them. I think the body concerns in relation to where he plays defensively kind of got talked to death and hurt his stock going into the spring a bit. And you really had to go out there and just any chance you could to see him, you needed to go out there and see him just because you didn't know when he was going to get pitched to, if he was going to have anything to hit. But that gave you a lot of opportunity to see the makeup, to see the defensive aptitude, flashing kind of the power tool when he did get an opportunity to do it. And I think if you believe he could play shortstop, this is a no-brainer at number 2.
Absolutely.
And even if I think you think he's a second baseman long term, he's definitely like, this is a perfectly fine pick along with, like we said before, Jackson Holiday, Brooks Lee, Elijah Green, Cam Collier, Kevin Parada, certainly, all the way down to kind of like that Gavin Cross range. Just all these guys, I think, have the combination of tools, upside, and in some cases floor to make sense at that pick.
How
about you, Smitty? Oh, sorry.
No, I was actually going to throw it over to him.
But I really, when you're talking about Tremar, I really don't think there's a higher floor as to find a plus hit tool in this high school class than Tremar. There's it's a chance for a 60 grade hit tool right now. He's been mentioned as the best high school hitter in recent years, or in history sometimes with people. So I don't know if he's quite that guy, but the hit tool is definitely pure. So I think you can't go wrong with that type of. If you trust that hit tool and you can trust he's going to stick in the middle infield, then I think it's a guy you can take it to all day long.
And I throw in, I think that's a big part of what the Diamondbacks would be looking at is you've got smooth stroke, great patience at the plate, great eye, and it's great if he can play shortstop. The team doesn't need him to be. It creates more flexibility. This is an organization where Termarr Johnson can come in and doesn't instantly become the best hitter in that organization, and that's saying a lot because Corbin Carroll is there. I think there's so much that's set up for this play, and like I said, I've heard a lot from a couple different spots that they really do like him. I will tell you the two biggest considerations I gave: Elijah Green, who I talked about, but not to get picky about weird stuff, but it's like they kind of have that in Jordan Lawler. The other one is Parada, who you mentioned. I really think the Diamondbacks would be a great play for Kevin Parada. They could really use, I think, because Dalton Varsho is fine, everything like that, but playing in the outfield and center, Parada would make a ton of sense. Diamondbacks love catchers. I think that would have been a really great play. But size concerns isn't there with the Diamondbacks. They want guys that can hit. They want those dudes, and now they're going to have Lawler, Thomas, Carroll, and Termarr Johnson. Pretty happy. Pretty happy.
I think you nailed that. And I will throw one other thing in. With Jordan Lawler already in the fold and probably just one level ahead of Termarr Johnson, there's really not an enormous amount of pressure on Termarr to stay at the shortstop position, or I should say there's not as much pressure on the Diamondbacks to keep him at the shortstop position if everything goes with Lawler as we expect. Chris, it's always a pleasure, my man. Thank you for joining us. A hell of a pick, and we are going to move along to the Texas Rangers. Adam, welcome in, my man.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome, or not welcome. What time of day is it? I don't know what's going on, but I'm here for the Texas Rangers and ready to make a draft pick. Let's go.
LoneStarBall.com, Adam Morris. What are we doing with the Texas Rangers here? I think there's a lot of different directions this team can go. Seems like they are very serious about competing quickly. Who you got?
It's interesting. This would have been a much different analysis if the Rangers format, their system, their way of looking at things 5 years ago, when they were all about the tools, all about the big upside, all about the toolsy high schoolers from Georgia was always our joke. That's not really what they do anymore, particularly with the premium picks. They are looking more at more polished players. They're looking at players who have performed at a high level against high level competition. They're looking for guys, particularly with really high makeup and really good hit tools. And you can make an argument for Elijah Green, for Jackson Holiday, and they're supposedly in on those. But really, to me, it comes down to either Brooks Lee or Kevin Parada as the pick, and because I picked Brooks Lee. I predicted about 4 months ago Brooks Lee was going to be the Rangers pick, and I'm going to stick with it. So I'm going to say Cal Poly, the switch hitting shortstop from Cal Poly, Brooks Lee, because really what the Rangers need is a bunch more middle infielders with really good hit tools and questions about where they're going to land defensively.
I love this pick. I think Brooks Lee is the best combination of. I don't want to go straight to like the word safety because I think it's such a negative. I think in circles, but Brooks Lee has the safety. He's got the floor. He's got the upside. He's got maybe the sweetest swing in the college class. I think everyone agrees that he's going to hit, and I do think that he's a guy that has been shorted a little bit in terms of whether or not he's going to be able to stay at the shortstop position. I think you keep him there until he's moved off by a more premium athlete. And I think he's an average shortstop at worst right now. We'll see what that looks like at 27. But with Corey Seager signed on long-term and Marcus Semien in the fold and, Brooks Lee, there's not a huge bit of pressure for him to, play shortstop until he's 30. So I love the pick, Adam. Was there any other considerations? Was it Brooks Lee pretty much all along if he was on the board?
I really was going back and forth until a few minutes ago between Lee and Kevin Parada. Kevin Parada, the catcher out of Georgia Tech, he's another guy. Like I said, the Rangers' philosophy has really been about, in the last few years, has been about seeing guys who perform against high-level competition. Playing for Georgia Tech, Parada has done that. He's a catcher. The Rangers, ever since John Daniels took over almost 2 decades ago, they've loved catchers. He's somebody who has the bat, though, to be a potential middle-of-the-order impact bat. That was the other guy that I was really kind of looking pretty closely with. But I think Lee, like you said, Lee has that high floor. One of the things that John Daniels has talked about that the Rangers have adjusted their view for is the risk element of it. And Daniels has said that they feel like the Rangers have not in the past necessarily weighed enough the potential downside risk. And so he's, well, like you say, he's kind of a safer pick, but he's a safer pick with a good ceiling and somebody you can feel good about at number 3. But, Lee and Parada, I went back and forth. I finally went with Lee, but I think you couldn't go wrong with either of those guys.
I love it. I heard a weird comp. I don't know if it's a weird comp, but maybe fitting. Some evaluators see like a Jorge Polanco type at the shortstop position with Brooks Lee, and I mean that's a solid pick in the top 5. You take that all day. Adam, I mean we appreciate it, man. We always appreciate having you on the show. LoneStarBall.com, Texas Rangers, appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. So our Pittsburgh Pirates selector is not yet in the show, so we'll give him a second. But I want to kind of give Ian the chance here to comment on this. So Drew Jones, Termar Johnson, Brooks Lee, anything shocking, or is that kind of chalk?
I mean, I didn't expect to see Termar too. I mean, I don't think it's really a shock that he went that early. But I'm not shocked by anything out of the top 3 picks. Drew, I'm happy to see that Drew went 1, even though I wanted the chaos. I'm happy to see it wasn't an overthought pick, and we saw Drew 1. We saw the plus hit tool at 2 with Termar, and then probably the most all around college player goes 3 at Brooks Lee. Yeah. So pretty chalk.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got to keep the show moving. So I am actually going to call an audible here.
Oh,
Will, you're on the clock. Will Hooper, you are on the clock.
I said I was going to pick for the Dodgers tonight.
Well, you're on the clock a little earlier than we thought, man. Actually, we might have someone here. No, so Will, let's hear it, man. You're on the clock. 4th overall, Pittsburgh Pirates. Henry Davis, 1 overall in 2021. Some big talents left on the board, and you've seen.
Did I lose the connection here?
I think we lost Joe.
Joe looks really excited.
I think we lost Joe.
This need to give me some time to kind of process and
process your Pirates pick here for. So I'll give you time to think about this.
This is going to be kind of tough.
There we go.
There we go. Are we back? All right.
You're back. God, we lost you for a minute.
My internet flickered there. All right. So Will, Pittsburgh Pirates. What do you got? And no, Sean, no screenshotting that. I don't even know what it looked like, but we're not going to have it. All right, Will, what you got?
Well, I'm in a position where I've underscouted everybody at this pick because I didn't even know I had it until 30 seconds ago. So I'm going to go with somebody I'm sort of familiar with. I don't know if this is necessarily the best pick for the Pirates organization overall, but I think in terms of a pick at number 4, somebody I can speak to, I think it definitely fits in this range. I'm going to go with Elijah Green, outfielder from the IMG Academy. 6'3", 215. This is, I think we had Sack on later. He could speak to this. One of the best overall athletes at the prep level ever, especially in the time of PG events, PBR events, these showcase events where we're getting all these measurables in. 70 grade runner, 70 power, cannon arm, professional athlete bloodlines. Like, he checks all the boxes. Is up there with like Justin Upton for me in terms of just an overall athletic package taken, at this stage of the draft. Obviously, the big question is the hit tool. I think where you fall in line with where you think that's progressed this year defines where you're comfortable taking him. I think, early in the year, we were kind of, a little gun shy on putting him too high up on the board until we were more confident in that hit tool even being a 4. But I think, I saw him, up at Lake Point once. Ian's seen him tons. We have kind of the background of statistical performance on him, event records. It definitely seems like he's taken a step forward in terms of that hit tool, kind of, staying inside himself with 2 strikes, getting more focused, not just on matching plane, but kind of fighting off pitches and not taking, home run cuts. That's progressed enough that I think you should be pretty comfortable here at number 4 with the Pirates taking a guy like Green, who's, definitely got the highest upside of any player in this draft. I remember talking earlier to Second at PG Elite, last weekend. I said, if you got a 5 on that hit tool, it's, a coin flip between him and Drew. That's how insane the rest of the tool package is with him. Because like I said before, I've seen Drew a lot. There's 6s and 7s all across that profile. All Elijah Green has to do is be an average level, hitter to match up with that.
I mean, if he's a 5 hitter, you're talking about a guy that hits 255, 260, runs into 40 homers and steals 20 bags in his youth. So, I mean, I don't know why you'd ever turn that down. Smitty, you were the one that took the famous video of him hitting a massive nuke in a typhoon. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen in Elijah early here.
Yeah, what Will mentioned especially was the 2-strike swing. What I saw from early in the spring, that was the biggest thing that I saw from him. It was just a totally different approach that he took to at bats that I didn't see from him in the last 2 summers. So that was something that with a player of his pedigree, that he's still making changes and improving a hit tool that was the loudest thing we talked about for 2 years, and he heard it and everybody else knew it. So he's been working on something that clearly that's been a part of his game that he needed to work on. So I think the hit tool, like Will just mentioned, I think if it's a 5, a legitimate 5 right now, he's the best player in the draft. I don't even think it's a consideration with Drew. If you can think he's a 5 hit tool, but clearly it's not that. But when we're talking about Elijah Green, I think it's a top 5 pick in any draft in the last 3 years.
Certainly not a unanimous 5 hit, but if everyone
if everybody thought that, I think he's the 1-1. Yeah, I think it's
absolutely. Easy. So, Will, we are gonna bid you adieu for the time being, and actually, Smitty, you've got to go prep for your Marlins pick. So I will have you guys both back on the show in a little while, but I am going to bring on someone else here, someone who's a big fan of Elijah Green, and someone who does believe that it could be a 5 hit tool, Mr. Brian Sikowski. Brian, welcome to the show. One of our favorite, the PGOG, as we like to call you. Good to see you, man.
You too, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. What do you think about that Elijah pick?
I think it's the best pick of the draft, and I pick at 12, and anything I pick is not going to be as good as that one. So I was like, all right, let him fall to 12. I'll give him every bit of my pool, like whatever.
Look at all these idiots missing out.
I think you guys did it pretty well as far as like, if he's a 5 bat, he's kind of either right there with Drew or, maybe even better than Drew, like Smitty said. I agree with that point. I just do believe that he's a 5 bat. I think he's better than that.
There you go. He's a generational guy.
Yeah, he's on a tier alone for me. I think he's even like a tier above Drew by himself. But that's just, I know that's not a consensus, but that's how our board lines up at PG for sure.
Now you've been doing this a while. What do you think about the Justin Upton comp? Because Justin was a shortstop at the time. I think everyone agrees that Elijah moves like he could play shortstop. Similarities there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair comp. Justin Upton never ran a 6.1 though. So
that's true.
I know that the 6.1 or whatever is probably not his like real on grass speed. There's some indoor turf elements that help with that, but he's still a 6'3" guy. And Justin Upton never ran a 6'3" either. So I think like your ceiling with Elijah Green is like, what if Buxton were more physical? Like it's an unheard of, you can't even think about it type of ceiling.
Yeah.
I think that Upton is probably as good a comparison as we have as far as like body type, power, physicality, swing and miss, improving on the circuit rapidly, like that sort of profile. I think that's a good comparison. It's just Elijah's like 2 grades better athlete.
Yeah,
it seems like
that'll play. That seems like it'll play. Yeah. I mean, you could put him at middle linebacker and it'll play.
Yeah, you can do.
Looks like Sean Taylor out there.
No doubt.
All right.
No doubt.
Well, let's welcome in the 5th pick in the draft, another site favorite, D1 Baseball's own Burke Granger. Burke, welcome back, my man. How we doing?
No one told me Sikowski was going to be on my segment. I would have negotiated. So I would have got like Vinny in here instead of Sikowski. But I love seeing Brian run into him several times during the spring. So it's fitting that I'm on the show with him.
We were gonna get Vinny in for your segment alone, but we found out the other night that he's actually imprisoned in the Dominican Republic right now, and he doesn't know when he's gonna be home.
That's true.
So
it's long overdue.
He can't do anything for Vinny. Burke, you've got the 5th pick in the draft, repping the Washington Nationals once again. Still a lot of huge talent on the board.
Elijah Green wouldn't have made it to Sikowski. I would have snapped him up here. So just like Will's done all spring long, good job by Will and going out and getting the goods. So I'm going to go with Kevin Parada, the catcher out of Georgia Tech. For me, it's one of the better bats in this draft. It's a chance for a six hit and 6 pop. If you can, I don't know if the video is going to show the unorthodox. Yeah, there it is. The unorthodox setup in the load. But once he gets into a swing, the foot's down on time all the time, and consistently barreling the ball. I think it's a chance for a perennial kind of all-star bat. Definitely have some questions with the glove. The last time I saw him live was in the regionals last year at Vanderbilt. The receiving definitely has some work to do, but to be fair to him, like I don't know if I saw a pitcher on that Georgia Tech staff with at least like 45 command. So tough staff to catch, especially when you're talking about like Zach Maxwell, that type of volatile stuff. So yeah, you want to give him a shot to catch, but ultimately I think it's potential a right first baseman. Maybe left field because he runs fairly well for a catcher. The arm would I think limit him to left field, first base, potentially behind the plate.
Brian, our expert here, how do you compare Kevin Parada and Brooks Lee? I mean, who would be your top college bat in this class?
The top college bat for me is Brooks Lee because I think you're going to end up getting some defensive value out of him. I think there's some similar profiles there in terms of offensive impact, but with Lee, it's more of maybe he's not a shortstop, but he's going to be a pretty good third baseman. And with Parada, it's maybe he's not a catcher, but then he's going to have to play first. So we have Lee a little bit ahead just on that, but I agree with everything Burke said. I think there's pretty substantial upside as a right-handed bat with power and for average. He's a better athlete than the catcher position or whatever might indicate. He's a solid runner. Agreed that if he doesn't catch, he's going to have to play first base. And then the conversation becomes, okay, if this guy has to play first base, if he's never caught before, imagine if he played first base all the 2 years in college he was there or whatever. Would we be talking about this guy in the same breath we would Torkelson or Vaughn? And if the answer is yes, then you take him. And if the answer is no, then you don't, because there's not a lot of backup value there behind the stick. So I'm with Burke. I think the dude rakes. I think that this is a fine spot for him, even if he doesn't catch.
All right. So, Burke, I know you generally wouldn't comment on this. You still got to sign the player, of course. Did anyone else come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think in real life and in this draft, Jackson Holiday was strongly considered. I think there's a good chance Holiday doesn't make it 2-5, and if he does, I think there's a chance that the Nats scoop him up. So he's definitely one that I considered. And like I said, I was about to type in Elijah Green as soon as I had the chance, because to me, I agree with everything you guys said there. I think it's a potential generational talent that you got to take a chance on. But and I say that in full disclosure, when I saw him, he went 0 for 8 with 5 strikeouts over 3 days, and I still the talent is undeniable. So Eli Green is to me is a consideration, but Parada's who I was the best player on the board for me, and I'm happy to get him.
Burke, we love having you on the show, man. You're a great ambassador for the game and a great ambassador for the Nationals. Appreciate having on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime.
All right. Brian, before we get the Marlins pick in here, we'll kind of review the top 5. And I want to hone in on that Elijah Green pick again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the industry as a whole is really overthinking this in terms of the hit tool?
I do. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not captain, I'm smarter than the industry. I certainly don't think that, but I think we're lost in the trees here a little bit on Elijah. I think there's a fair bit of we stopped scouting him in February.
Yeah.
And if you stop scouting him in February, yeah, sure, he probably shouldn't be the first overall guy or whatever. But when you take into consideration the noticeable, the discernible, the like very obvious improvements that he was able to make this spring, especially the second half of the year, cleaning up some of the mistakes he'd been making, cleaning up some of the things we were worried about, and doing it again at IMG against premier talent. I think we're overthinking it. I really do. I've said that to kind of everybody I've talked to. I've been on different podcasts where they're, well, the industry consensus says you're wrong. I'm like, well, that's fine, but I'm making up my own mind. I'm making my own decision here. Having watched all these guys a ton, kind of like my job to do that. But anyways, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, dude, like, yeah, I think Elijah's really, really good.
All right, well, let's get an old friend back on here. Pick number 6, the Miami Marlins. Ian, welcome back to the show. I hear you've been promoted to a very high level role with the Marlins in the last 2 hours.
Interesting. I was mostly excited to be hearing Brian gush about Elijah, because I agree with 95% of what he's saying from what we just heard. So that's awesome to hear. So even the guy I saw in February was a 1-1 guy for me. So I mean, that was before he started making adjustments fully. So I'm excited to see where he goes.
What a lot of people don't realize about that typhoon video that you took is that was coming in from center field, and it was a driving rain, and he still hit it out.
It was a fun one.
We're not saying Elijah Green is more powerful than Mother Nature, but we're not saying it.
No.
We can't prove it.
Yeah.
But there's video evidence, but hey, it's okay. But anyway, pick 6,
man. Marlins, what we got?
Yeah, I mean, there's some options here. Some options I didn't expect to see on the board, and I think that's where we're going to start with. With pick 6 here, we're going to go with Stillwater shortstop Jackson Holiday. I don't think there's really a better option here. Cam Collier was a thought process here. Zach Neto was a thought for me is here as well. But I think picking Holiday here it's too easy. There's all-star bloodlines. There's insane bat-the-ball skills for this kid. He's shown massive power this spring. Honestly, every night he went out and shown power. So I think he was probably the most impressive high school kid we saw this spring. And I'm just excited to get him here at 6.
Brian, you've seen a lot of Jackson Holiday over the last 2 years, and you've seen kind of his transformation or retransformation back into the player that we kind of thought he was going into 2021. What do you think of the guy?
Yeah, it's the things that are there now that make him what he is, make him a potential top 5 pick, have always been there. We've just kind of waited to see it really come together with some physical strength is kind of what we're talking about. This is video from PG National. So this is video of 11 months ago. He looks totally different than he does right now.
Barrel-chested now.
Yeah, he's a house now.
He looks like he's been eating and lifting, like it's college lifting now. He's not just going to Planet Fitness for 30 minutes a day or whatever. Like my man is working out at Oklahoma State and trying
Nothing
to
against
take
Planet Fitness.
Yeah, like,
future
trying to
sponsor of the show.
But yeah, it's a smooth athlete. It's a gorgeous left-handed swing. He's really going to hit. He's always hit. And now this spring, he hit 17 home runs. So now instead of power projection, it's now juice with even more power projection. And there's a chance to play shortstop. I think he's probably in play at 1-1. And I absolutely agree with Smitty that this was the best guy left on the board.
Absolutely.
So both of you, Ian and Brian, we'll start with Ian. How much does Bloodlines come into your evaluation process? Because this is a huge year for it.
I think it comes in to an extent. I think the abilities that Holliday has on his own right sell himself. But I think when you add in all-star background with Matt Holliday, it's only going to get better. He's especially familiar with the Jupiter area as well. He spent his whole life in that area. So it's going to be a perfect fit for Jackson Holliday in Miami, I feel. But yes, the Bloodlines definitely make some part in this. But I think the abilities that Holliday has on its own stick out.
Joe, I'm just going to quote you from the podcast we did, the roundtable about a month ago. You said, like, I'd rather have it than not have it, but it really doesn't sway the needle in a big way. So I feel the same about it. I'd rather have it than not have it, but it's not going to
doesn't hurt, not going to hurt anything.
It's not going to change a half a grade on a guy to move him that's not going to do that for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to say, well, there's not a lot of players that would have a son that you go, but that was his dad.
Right.
There's a few. We won't say him on the show, but
that's not how I feel about Jackson Holliday. I think this is a top 5 guy.
Matt,
regardless of his last name.
Matt was a monster for sure. Ian, thank you so much, man. We might see you back later on the show. Absolutely. But it is time to jump into pick number 7 and another favorite of the show. We got Greg coming back onto the show. Greg, how you doing, man? And I got to ask, how are things going on Northside Bound?
The things are going fantastic on Northside Bound. Thank you for asking. I've got my blazer on, so I'm ready just like you. And yeah, I mean, we're digging the site and we're loving draft stuff.
All right. Well, pick 7. I know that there's a guy on the board that you've had interest in for a long time. We have kind of gone chalk in terms of the top 6 or 7 guys. 6 of them are off the board. So I'm interested to see where you're going here.
We had some discussions behind the scenes, but with the 7th pick in the 2022 Prospects Live first year mock draft, it's going to be Cam Collier, third baseman at Chippewa. And, full transparency, you can't be more impressed than what Cam did, right? He bet on himself to reclassify into the 22 class. Then he bet on himself to go into junior college where he succeeded. And then he bet on himself again to take 7 games in the Cape. Just so impressed with what Cam does, both as a person and on the field. He shows good contact. I think we can be honest and say he could probably hit the ball a little bit harder, but he's 17 playing against advanced pitching. Couldn't pass him up. Really just, you talked about Bloodlines just a few minutes ago. Son of Lou Collier. He's been around the game a little bit. This is somebody that, from a Cubs perspective, where they've made big investments in the performance science aspect of the department or the organization, really can't pass up Cam here. Totally honest, had some discussions behind the scenes about Zach Neto as an underslot option. That is definitely something that I could see the Cubs maybe pivoting to if somebody like Collier isn't on the board and, somebody falls down for signability, let's say to the Mets or whatnot. But couldn't pass up Cam here is just awesome.
Yeah. And I think the argument I've talked, we talked to Jeff, he's on the Cape, and we talked to a couple of Danny Garcia's on the Cape. I think the argument is he's perfectly okay with shooting a ball through the left side, to the right of the shortstop. He's okay with going up the middle. And as he gets more comfortable with the pitching that he's seeing, he is 17, he's seeing 95. Like, come on. As he gets more comfortable with that velocity, he'll start kind of using that torque and tapping into some of that raw power and actually trying to hit the ball over the fence when he gets ahead in the count. So, Brian, you've seen Cam. What the heck do you think, man?
Yeah, I agreed again. This was the top guy I had left on my board as far as this exercise goes. So definitely in agreement with the pick. You hit all the highlights. He's beyond his years advanced in terms of maturity at the plate, in terms of his approach and knowing his swing and knowing his zones. For me, fundamentally, the general vibe is like, well, you're not a complete hitter until you learn how to hit the ball the opposite way. And I couldn't disagree with that more. I think that you're not a complete hitter until you learn how to turn and burn. And Cam, that's what Cam has been doing. That's what Cam has been progressing on. You mentioned that he's more than comfortable shooting the ball the other way for a base hit. Yes, but what we've seen from Cam in the last year or so, including this year in JUCO a little bit, is now he is trying to turn and burn. He's knowing that 92 on the inner third, I can get there. I'm going to hit that ball really hard to the pull side. And so as the progression's gone along for him as a hitter, as he has power. He has a ton of power, but as he's tapping into it more in game, we're seeing that impact of the offense come. He's not just all walks and singles. And I think he's got a chance to play third base too. So yeah, great pick.
Love it, Greg. That's a hell of a pick. We will always welcome you back. You do a good job for the Cubs. And go check out Greg's site, man. Is it
Northsidebound.com. A lot of draft, a lot of Cubs content, and we love it.
It's good
Thanks
stuff.
for having me,
It's
gents.
good stuff. Absolutely, man. All right, so Brian, I think this is where it gets interesting. I think for a lot of people, this is where kind of it's not a tier below, but it's just different. You know, they're different players, different demographic. I'm excited to see where the Twins go here with this 8th pick. We'll get Jeremy Nygaard in here. Jeremy, my friend, twinsdaily.com. Great stuff. I'm excited to have you on the show, and I'm very eager to see where's Minnesota going, because it always seems to be a college outfielder.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me. And I think that's kind of the feeling up until last year when back he just uses a trade. So I went back and forth. I thought there was a chance Collier might drop, and that was obviously going to be the way that I think the Twins would ultimately go there. For me right now, making this 8th pick, I'm gonna go a little bit different. I'm gonna take Connor Prelip from Alabama, the left-handed pitcher.
Ooh.
That's recovering nicely from Tommy John. And I think, at this point in the board, he's got a chance to be not only the Twins' #1 prospect soon, but of all the guys left, the guy with the best chance to be the highest rated prospect in baseball. And before the injury, the potential to be in that conversation to go first overall. The Twins don't get that opportunity a lot. Bad year last year, they might really want to go college hitter. This opportunity is too good for them.
Yeah, Brian, I think, and Jeremy, I think there's a lot of that in this class. I think there's a lot of just college pitchers that may provide excess value if it clicks. And I mean, you guys won't believe this, but this is more Will Hofer video. We like Typhoon video on this site. No, but I mean, Connor Prelip 18 months ago was the presumptive #1 pick in 2022 before getting hurt. And he's really worked his way back, touched 97 at the combine. It's a heavy fastball with a potential plus slider. Brian, you've seen him. What are your thoughts on Connor Prelip?
Yeah, I definitely agree that he's got perhaps the best chance to be the most impactful arm of this college crop. Definitely agree with the fact that 2 years ago or whatever, he was looking like 1-1. At this point now, there's kind of a hope and a prayer type of thing. We don't know. We just don't know. We see the stuff, the metrics check out. I'm sure he's healthy. That's going to check out. But the dude has not pitched. So there's not a lot of game experience here. It may be a slower burn when it comes to literally just learning how to pitch at a high level because he hasn't done much of it. But with that being said, like if we're talking about upside, if we're talking about taking a shot on one of the hurt college guys who's got, #2 starter or higher type of ceiling, this is the guy. Absolutely.
Jeremy, that is a nice surprise. I really like that pick. Had no idea where Prelip was going to go in this class. And frankly, wouldn't surprise me if he went 29 later on tonight. So the fact that you took him right here, I think it's a great pick. And I think it could end up being the pick of the draft, honestly, 3 years down the road. So again, twinsdaily.com, Jeremy Nygaard. Thank you so much for joining us, man. I appreciate it. All right, so we are going to move along here. I love that pick, Brian. I thought that was a fun one. Those injured college pitchers, they're going to be one to watch.
Mm-hmm. Probably wasn't going to make it past 12. Wink, wink.
Wink. Yeah, I think that team likes pitchers, so yeah. We'll get to them. But hey, let's do a little bit of Kansas City Royals. Alex, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but you're not going to be able to spend 40% of your slot on your pick this year. I know you like Frank Mazzucato, but you got to pay up. Kansas City Royals, kind of the shocker of the 2021 draft with Frank Mazzicato. Alex, actually, in last year's draft, Henry Davis fell into his lap. So you're doing okay at this. Where are we going with this pick?
I think there's a lot of possibilities. I think the Royals actually are like the first true like wild card in terms of they could literally go any direction. But I think this year, instead of the underslot game, I really think they just keep it simple. And I think this pick that I'm going to make is actually somewhere between best available, best on my board, and could realistically be their pick. I'm going to go Jace Young out of Texas Tech. I don't really understand what the overthinking of his on Jace is. He has hit at every level. He has an OPS of over 1,000, and every year he played at Texas Tech. He walked more than he struck out every year he was at Texas Tech. There's no real Cape record. He only played in 8 games on the Cape. So I guess if that's what you're worried about, then whatever. But teams in the Big 12 ultimately stopped pitching to him at about the middle of the year this year. And he still hit like 14 home runs and 18 doubles. And you would watch him with nobody on base. And the pitches he were getting, it was a joke. So I think he had 17 more walks and strikeouts this year. He's was a 14% K rate and like a 20% walk rate. So I am thrilled to be getting what I think is the second or third best bat in the draft class with the 9th pick. And I think he's a guy you could slot into low A and maybe even high A right away. And he could probably be in the middle of your lineup by May of 2024.
Yeah. And so one thing, I forgot to mention this. Alex is part of RoyalsFarmReport.com, and they do killer work. So if you guys are Royals fans or you enjoy prospects, some of the best in the game. Alex, I will say you are a hell of a salesman. That was pretty good. And even though he hasn't played on the Cape, Jace Young was an absolute animal for the CNT. So when he did play in the summer, he was still blowing guys away. Brian, you got to like this pick. He's right. I mean, Jace Young has never faltered.
Yeah, I think you're betting on the bat here. Obviously, we're maybe concerned about the type of defensive value we're going to get from Jace, depending on where you put him. It's kind of an awkward fit because it's not a guy that's a shortstop that maybe you can move to second. Like he already is a second baseman. So if he can't play there, where's he going to go? But aside from that, take that out of it. He rakes. He's going to get on base. The power is real and translatable. I know there's some, dry air in West Texas. Maybe that helps the ball fly. Not with him, man. The batted ball data is outstanding. He improved what he needed to improve on this year in terms of the approach. You talked about the numbers, and that's a really good team in Texas Tech. It's a really good offense. It's not a team that you can necessarily look at their best hitter and think, oh, we'll just pitch around him and like that. So that wasn't the case with Jace. It's not like he was just getting pitched around and that's where all his walks come from. This guy was one of a really, really good offense in Lubbock. So it wasn't that. It was him, just staying in his approach. It was him consistently knowing the zones to swing in and doing a good job of it. And to answer the question that popped up, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's below average. It is kind of a wonky action. But no, I love this pick. I think if you subscribe to the Jacob Berry train of thought, Jace Young is a better athlete than Jacob Berry. He's a better defender. And I mean, outside of maybe the Shriners Classic, which was 4 games against the best talent in the country the first weekend of the year, Jace Young has never stopped hitting. He's never stopped taking walks. He's done everything that you need to do along the way. So, Alex, I love this pick. I think you knocked it out of the park, and I think he's going to be one of the most surefire bats to make the big leagues in this class. So, bravo.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks again for having me on this year.
Absolutely, man. Brian, we'll keep you around for one more pick and then move along.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, let's move on to pick number 10 here. We're gonna go to Tyler Patter. Tyler, what's going on, man?
Not much. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Watched this last year. Was thrilled with what I saw. Joe, you are the man hosting this. Makes it a great experience. So,
and I'm just here. Yeah. All right, Tyler. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. You've been evaluating talent for just as long as most of us. Colorado Rockies on the board. Excited to see where you think Coors Field needs an injection.
Well, before I make this pick, I will say I had my pen ready to write Jace Young on the card, but yeah, not going to happen. So pivoting different direction, I think the Rockies, we've seen what they've done the last few years, going with, toolsy, projectable hitters, Montgomery, Veen, Toglia. Think we got to go back to the mound, and I'm going with Brock Porter out of Lake St. Mary or Orchard Lake St. Mary's Prep. I think he's a perfect fit for the system, for the organization. The changeup is crazy to watch. It kind of blows me away seeing that. I think the slider deserves more credit than it's getting. I think it's got great two-plane shape. And the fastball, I mean, nothing really needs to be said about that. I think that it's a pretty elite fastball, maybe the best in the class, definitely from the high school crop. So those are the three things I'm looking for from a Rockies pitcher. Obviously need a fastball, but the slider and changeup, that's what I'm looking for. And look at he's got a good body for pitching. I think there's some projection left there. He checks all the boxes for me.
Hey, Brian, have you ever seen Brock pitch?
Yeah, a couple times.
What do you think, man?
Ran into him in the summer. If you squint at that video, you can see my hand shaking holding the radar gun because it was so damn cold. But yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about Brock. Elite competitor, elite person. The stuff is unbelievable. I agree with you, Tyler, that the slider is not getting the pub it deserves. It was legitimately plus this year on multiple occasions. The changeup is a demon. And
that changeup is unbelievable.
He's got the makeup to do whatever it takes to be as good as possible. We've seen it firsthand. I've had a pretty close seat to watching that for a lot of years. This is a kid who started and won a state championship game as a freshman, throwing 84. He's got moxie. He's got stones. He's got projection. He's outstanding.
Yeah, and Orchard Lake St. Mary's is a factory. So he's playing around some of the best talent in the country. He's been exposed to good talent all along the way. Tyler, appreciate it. Tyler does a lot of work for us over at Prospects Live, and he kills it. So I appreciate you coming on, picking for the Rockies. I think you did him a lot of justice here.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, good luck in a couple selections here, Brian.
Thank you. You just crushed my board, but thank
you. All right. We will get Tyler out of here. Brian, we'll get you off the board here for a bit and kind of let you evaluate your board for the Detroit Tigers. And let's get another guy in here. Let's get my main man, Tyler Jennings. If the film that you're seeing today wasn't taken by Will Hofer, it was probably taken by Tyler Jennings, and he's already hard at work. This weekend, he's doing the PDP, checking out the top high school talent in the country, and then he's going to do the U.S. Collegiate National Team, the best college talent in the country. I mean, Tyler does some of the best work that we've got here at Prospects Live, and I'm excited to get his thoughts on a couple of picks here. Actually, he's going to get 2 New York Mets picks, so a good chance to evaluate. Let's get Joe DeMaio in here. Joe, we have not had you on this show yet. You do some work at SNY and, of course, the Mets pod. I've been on your show. It's an awesome podcast. You guys do fantastic work. And you're a good representative and ambassador for the Mets. And you're the only guy that's going to be on this show for 2 picks this year. So how does that make you feel?
Lucky you. That's all I could say.
Lucky us.
Yeah,
for sure.
The Mets are in a unique position here. My scouting director, Mark Tremuta, said in an interview just the other day, this is a position that we may never be in again. Not only do they have 2 first-round picks, they're both within the top 15. They also have the 75th overall pick as compensation for Noah Syndergaard leaving for the Angels in free agency. And the Mets have routinely used their 5% overage on their bonus pool. So if you account for that, their bonus pool right now is just a hair under $14.7 million. So they have an opportunity to do some real damage here. I was working the phones with some of the advisors for guys that went early, try to push them down to me because I have the money to play with.
To float some guys.
It unfortunately
what a Steve Cohen move.
Yeah. It did not work out, but I'm very, very happy to make this selection. I think they're looking to add some impact and some upside. And I'm going to go out to the state of Nevada and bring in outfielder Justin Crawford from Bishop Gorman High School. you're talking about a contact bat that has improved this spring. He's actually even shown a little more pop than he had previously. I don't think power is going to be a huge part of his game, but you're buying that you think the contact ability is going to continue to improve. He could be honestly, I never say this, but he could be an 80 runner. He's surely a 70 runner, but the speed is fantastic. I think he's going to be able to play center field. If you want to play him in left like his dad, free to do that as well. And this is an organization that needs to add some upside. It's really good at the top with guys like Alvarez and Beatty and Mauricio and Mark Vientos. Then it takes a dive. So they really need to add some upside here. And I think adding a guy like Justin Crawford makes a lot of sense. And my general manager, Billy Epler, is a very happy guy. As we know, Justin Crawford kind of fits his type. So that's where I'm going to go at 11. And, you'll see me again here in a couple more picks.
I love it, man. Tyler, you've seen Jay Crawford. What do you think?
I like the pick. I mean, you mentioned it. We're talking about God, it could be an 80 grade runner. And when you look at this class, it's like the first two that come to mind that could be 80 grade runners, like Chandler Simpson for Georgia Tech and Michael Gupton from my area, actually. But yeah, you mentioned him getting stronger this year. He's tapped more into his power, still projectable as well. I really do like the profile that you have here, and it'll be interesting to see what you do here at 14 as well with Crawford now in the mix.
And one thing before you let me go, question for you. Am I able to get – I'm taking him anyway, but am I able to get Justin Crawford for the slot value of, say, 15 overall?
You know what? Because you're representing Steve Cohen, you can do whatever the hell you want with your money, Joe.
Because I was going to say, if I could get him at the slot of 15 overall, that puts my bonus pool up over $15 million. So
here's the thing, man. I think Justin Crawford is one of those players in this class that has such a high variance. I mean, I think 11 is probably the ceiling. We're hearing a lot about him with the Mets and not a whole lot above that. It wouldn't stun me if he goes above that, but he's the son of a guy that made $130 million in his career, $160 million in his career. So you never really know how money matters to some of these players, some of these families. Education could be a huge part of it, but that's beyond the point. This is an internet mock draft, and you can do whatever you want.
Well, I'm excited to add Justin, and he gets to pair up with Alex Ramirez as potentially two high athletic outfielders for the future for the New York Mets.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick, man. We will have you back here in just a minute for pick number 14, but we got to welcome back Perfect Game National Coordinator.
I'm so ready for this.
He's back. Yeah, no sniping Tyler this year.
Yes.
Who you got, man? Detroit Tigers, number 12.
Yeah, this pick came down to 3, the way the board shook out. But I'm going to go with my highest graded bat remaining, and that is Virginia Tech's Gavin Cross, the corner outfielder. He's a guy I like ahead of this. I think he's like number 7 or 8 on my personal board. Like the value there. Obviously, Tyler, you saw him a bunch. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. But this is a dude who I think is kind of a not too far away, above average regular in right field. And that's kind of what I'm looking for at this point. I want a college bat. I want a guy who's going to be quick. I'm not looking for a slow burn high school guy here. And Cross has got it all. Dude hits for power. Dude hits for average. The exit velocities are off the charts. He's very, very good with consistency in terms of how hard he hits the ball. Another guy who knows his zones really well. He performed in a huge way this year. He's a good athlete. I just don't know if he's quite athletic enough to play center field in the major leagues. But either way, I think he's got a chance to be an asset in right. And this is one of those guys who, for all the up and down we do on stock, I think I had Gavin Cross at like number 11 coming into the spring, and now I have him at like number 8. So this is a guy who pretty much stayed the course. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked with this one.
Yeah, and you mentioned on Jace Young what a loaded lineup that was at Texas Tech. I would opine Virginia Tech, maybe one of the top 5 longest lineups in the country. You had to pitch to him. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think, again, we're looking at a very polished bat. Tyler, how many times did you see? You must have seen him 3 or 4 games this past year.
Probably more than, I think, closer to 5 because the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
right.
Brian just nailed it on the head with Cross. When I saw him, there's a couple of times he uses all fields with the power. He limited the strikeouts this year too, even though I think he kept the same, like a similar chase rate. But yeah, with center field, he did play center field this year. I think he probably ends up moving to right field where the arm definitely will end up playing, but I don't think he's as athletic enough to play center field too. But yeah, no, like I said, Zach nailed it on the head. This is a very good pick for Detroit, in my opinion.
I got to ask, Brian, who are the other players kind of in mind here?
Well, as far as guys who I thought might fall that didn't, I think Porter and obviously, like I told you a little bit earlier, Prelip were in that mix. But as far as guys available, it was Cross, Neto, and Dylan Lesko, who were my final three.
Dig it, man. I'm a little surprised. I'm not going to lie. Pick 12. I actually thought Neto was going to come off the board really fast.
He would have
for
if
one
Cross
reason
was
or
gone.
another.
Like I was going to sprint to the podium, with his name.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens here with pick 13. I kind of get the feeling that they're going to go in another direction, but we will see what happens. Brian, thanks as always, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right. All right, we got some time for talking Halos here. Pick number 13. We'll see if Jared Timms goes in a different direction than the Halos generally do. What's going on, Jared? How you doing, man?
Not doing too bad. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me on again.
Doing pretty well. How have your talks with Perry gone over the last few hours? Are we gonna be seeing an arm off the board?
The Angels are in an interesting spot this year. They really, really are, and even I was in an interesting spot here. It took me a little while. This wasn't an easy pick by any means. There are a lot of really good options in this pick. But in the back of my head, it did weigh that, the Angels don't have a second rounder this year. You go straight to the third round. And that's when it gets a little bit tough for sure. So I think this pick mimics what, Perry and staff have been doing very well in the past. And we saw it last year with Sam Bachman, and probably have a weird feeling we're going to see it again this year with whoever the Angels actually pick. But this year I went with Landon Sims, right-handed pitcher. Mississippi State. Yes.
Wow.
I think I would probably consider this a little bit of an underslot. You could probably get a little bit of a deal here for sure. But yeah, at the very, very least, and it's probably a bad way to look at it, he's a back of the bullpen reliever. That you can slot with a guy like Raisel Iglesias. He's going to move quickly. He's going to move very quickly when he comes back from Tommy John. Oh yeah, he has that elbow issue, by the way. And if you want to look
He's
at
not the only one.
Yeah. And if you want to look at the big upside, he showed that he could start this year. He showed that he has the 3 pitches. He shows that he can throw strikes like what Perry and staff really, really like. So, yeah, I'm extremely excited here. Might be a little bit of a shock, might be a little bit of an underslot, but I'm excited with what we went here.
I'll tell you what, man. If you and the Angels believe that Landon Sims has a shot to start, he could be a pretty solid number 2 starter. I think everyone agreed that it was a 70 fastball and maybe a 70 slider, although the command for that pitch kind of wavered a little bit. And he flashed a changeup this year that, at times was solid average, and he's got the 3-pitch mix. It's just can that body hold up over extended innings? I love the pick. I think Landon Sims is another guy with a lot of these hurt college pitchers that could end up providing excess value from where they were selected. Tyler, I know that I don't think you actually saw Landon. I could be wrong, but you and I did a lot of watch parties watching Mississippi State. What are your thoughts?
That we did. No, I agree. When you mentioned the 70 fastball and potentially 70 slider, kind of like a similar profile to what Sam Bachman was last year too, with that fastball slider combo. Change up. You mentioned it, more average, but he definitely worked on it. If he didn't have the elbow injury, we'd probably be talking about the top college arm in the class personally. But yeah, I'd like the pick. A little surprising, but it's a mold that the Angels are following, and I don't hate it one bit.
Jared, I think you knocked it out of the park with, this guy is at worst a, high leverage relief pitcher. And that has more and more value in this meta that is Major League Baseball right now. So I love the pick, man. I think it's a solid pick. And again, I'm never going to criticize one of these injured college pitcher picks. I think all of them can make a lot of sense this year. So bravo, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, guys, and amazing job like always, guys. Thanks for having me, and just amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, God, we got to get him back on the show already. I don't know
2
why.
weeks goes by too quickly.
All right, Joe.
Wow.
Moneybags Mayo.
Yeah. So
all right, pick 14.
So at 11, the other name I was considering was Gavin Cross, and he obviously went. I would have double dipped on bats. Speaking to some people in the game that are not affiliated with the Mets and asking what do they think the Mets should do. They think the Mets should go bat at 11 and 14. Talking about the pitching depth outside the first round when you talk about some of the high school arms that could fall due to signability. Of course, the injured arms that we can go in and name for days. So that brings to mind a guy like Zach Neto. Does he fit? Could. I know there's some interest in Jet Williams. The Mets certainly need some pitching in their system. Matt Allen is their top pitching prospect right now. He's thrown 10 professional innings since being drafted, and he's still working his way back from elbow injury. Then you have Calvin Ziegler, second rounder from last year. Dom Hamill, third rounder from last year, both pitching very, very well. From there, it kind of falls off. I was hoping for a Brock Porter to be available at even 11, and he was not. And, with the money that I saved at number 11 with Justin Crawford, still I'm going to be able to spend some more money after this. But I can go a little over slot here at 14. And you know what? We're never going to be in this position again. The Mets are going to be winning baseball games with Steve Cohen, spending $300 million a year on a roster, blowing through the tax, going past back 10 picks on your first pick. Let's go for it. Dylan Lesko with the 14th overall pick. And if there's a team I think that's best positioned to make this pick early in the first round, it's the Mets. Because I believe he will take an overslot bonus. And our teams, how many teams are willing to make their draft the Dylan Lesko draft?
Right.
That don't have the extra picks. The Mets can do this, go over slot, and still make impactful picks after this. Looking at the video, Lesko, to me, he would have been the third player on my personal board had he not gotten injured, just behind Drew Jones and Termar Johnson. Fastball's up to 97. The changeup is probably the best secondary pitch in this entire class when he's right. And the curveball was really, really showing great signs this spring before he went down with the injury. And the Mets haven't shied away from Tommy John before. You've seen them draft JT Ginn and pay him really, really well just after getting Tommy John. So I think this is the kind of play where the Mets are looking for a lot of upside and trying to capitalize on this draft. And I think with Justin Crawford and Dylan Lesko, those are two very high upside selections.
I've heard that. I've heard that the Mets are using this opportunity to take the most upside that they can because, frankly, if they're going to be a team that exceeds the competitive balance tax every year, they're going to be able to buy out the players that they need to fill out a 25-man. So you might as well use the draft to reach for superstars, to kind of reach for that, roll 70 guy if you can get your hands on him. I love this pick, man. I think I agree with just about everything you said. If Dylan Lesko is healthy, I think he's probably working his way into a top 5 selection rather than top 15. But you got the 14th pick in the draft here, and you might be drafting the best pitcher available, assuming everything comes back healthy.
And last thing I'll say before I know you got to move on to the next pick. The Mets they have not drafted a high school pitcher since in the first round since Scott Kazmir in 2002. So
he's still pitching.
He's still pitching. somehow, some way he's still hanging around. But so it's something they typically don't do. But you know what? Trends are meant to be broken. Maybe this is the year it happens.
Absolutely. Joe, it's been a pleasure, man. Appreciate having you on this mock. You'll definitely be back next year, probably only for one pick. We'll see. But again, if you've enjoyed Joe, you can check him out on SNY. And what was the other place, the podcast name?
The Mets Pod. Very simple.
The Mets Pod. Yeah, that's pretty easy to search.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks,
I appreciate you guys having me and have fun the rest of the way.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Tyler, you saw Dylan Lesko a lot at a number of places. So what are your thoughts?
I like the pick, and I will say I probably am guilty for breaking him. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to do it. But no, his start in HSI was probably the best I had seen him. Opened the gates like 95, 97, dipped down. Probably dipped nothing more than 94 too. And he brought the changeup early and often. Changeup was just devastating. You're talking about a separation of like 15 miles an hour from the fastball in the low 80s, and kids just cannot catch up to it. And then he breaks out, 2 or 3 curveballs that were like 2,900 spin rates or 3,000 RPMs. It's a really, really good pitch mix. And I think, if we were take out the injury, we're looking at probably one of the most polished prep arms we've seen in probably the last like 5-10 years.
Yeah, easy. All right, so we're going to hit the halfway point here. We're going to welcome on our very own and PBR as well, San Diego Padres representative, Deegs. Welcome to the show. And how you been, man? How are things going?
Good. I got to say, everybody that's been on this show, but especially you two, you look amazing. So I'm glad the Prospects Live Draft crew is cleaning up as nicely as the work is. So
yeah, absolutely, man. Padres are always fun. Padres, kind of like the Mets picks there. They always go for upside. And I know you had some interest in Dylan Lesko there. That might have surprised you, but where are you going 15?
Yeah, I mean, before I make the pick, Lesko was going to be the pick. I'll say I think in real life, there's no chance. I mean, I don't have any inside info or anything, but I would say there's no chance he makes it past San Diego at 15, given their aggressiveness, given the 5 years in a row of taking a high school player in the first round. And with my selection, we're going to make it 6 years in a row because the San Diego Padres are going to be taking Noah Schultz out of Oswego East High School.
Had a feeling.
So,
had a feeling.
I mean, I don't think there's a player in the draft. Honestly, I don't think there's a player we've seen in a long time like Noah Schultz. I mean, he's listed at 6'9", 225 pounds. Most player listings, the player is shorter than the actual listing. I think he might be taller. The immediate comparison that comes to mind, and you never want to comp a 17, 18-year-old to a Hall of Famer, but it's like Randy Johnson stands out right away. He's been up to 96 multiple times this spring in short stints. The slider, as you can see in the video here, it's an actual Frisbee, like upwards of 3,000 RPMs regularly. And when I saw him last fall at the PBR Midwest Fall Championships, he was turning over a really good changeup. Like, he doesn't throw it a ton because you can imagine in high school ball, when 96 is coming at you with that slider from the left side, you probably don't have to throw a changeup. But he'll show it originally like in the mid to high 70s, occasionally 80, 81. It's really good. It's got some fade. It's got some low darting action to it. I guess the thing will always be like how much can you repeat your delivery when you're 6'9"? He's gotten way better at it. When he was a junior in high school, there were like legitimate strike concerns, like, okay, is this kid ever going to sync up? Then he comes out in the fall, was throwing a ton more strikes. I saw him punch out 11 guys in 4 innings, just filling up the zone with a 70 to 75% strike rate, and he goes at guys. So it's a risky pick, right? Like he missed some time this spring with mono, and he hasn't thrown a whole lot since last year, but I guess my point of view is I don't want to be the guy that passes on Noah Schultz if he turns out to be what his ceiling is, which is probably the highest ceiling of any arm in this entire class, given his size and his aptitude to spin, his ability to control his body at his size, the velocity is already taking a jump, and that changeup being thrown in there. Like, the ceiling is enormously high. So,
yeah, I mean, let's be clear. The video that we're showing here is 18 to 20 months old. I mean, he's been 93 to 94 up to 97. The slider spin rates are up, 400 up to 32, 3,300. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And I think Deeks kind of hit it on the head. If this guy throws strikes, good luck. I've heard a lot of Andrew Miller, Miller.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing with Andrew Miller early in his career was like, hey, can you throw the fastball where you want it? And he eventually figured it out in relief. But even in relief, like, that's a high leverage Josh Hader, the game's over.
Yeah. If you get that if you get that in 6, 7, 8 years down the road from a guy, and there will be a lot of conversation. People will say like, how valuable are relievers or not? But if you get prime Andrew Miller or like what Josh Hader gives to the Brewers right now in the first round, I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it if that's like the low end. If the high end is he's a top of the rotation type of guy that's punching out 200 plus guys every single year, like that's definitely in the cards with Noah. So
yeah. All right. Well, Deegs, keep doing the hard work that you do for PBR and for Prospects Live. We appreciate it, man. You do great work. You're a great evaluator. So we'll be seeing you. All right.
I'll catch you guys later. Keep crushing it.
All right, man. All right. Tyler, quick thoughts on Mr. Noah Schultz.
It's a fun pick. I will say, you mentioned the slider being as tough as it is. Being a lefty is probably a nightmare in the box against that thing. And we mentioned the changeup too. I remember getting some info about his changeup from about the same time as what Dees was mentioning with the fall. The changeup was running and it probably project more like 55 is what the guy had told me. And now he's coming out. He's 93, 94, touches 96 in the 7 every once in a while. It's very, very intriguing to see that now, especially from a guy as lanky and as tall as he is. And you also don't have to remember, this arm slot's right here, essentially. So it's a low release as well.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, I've loved your analysis, dude. Keep up the hard work. I'm really excited to see some of the crazy video that you get from these events over the next few weeks.
Be prepared for a bunch of content in the next feed. That's all I got to say on that one.
I love it, man. I love hearing it. Okay, so we will get Tyler out of here, and we are going to welcome in the Cleveland Indians pick. Old-time friend of the show, Mr. Willie Hood. Willie's been doing this for a long, long time. Willie, I think everyone that has followed the draft space for long enough knows your work at Guardians Insider. I mean, you guys kill it over there, especially with the draft stuff. Excited to see where you go with the 16th pick. I think, Cleveland is one of those teams that really works off a specific model, and I'm interested to hear if you follow along those lines.
Yeah, with the 16th pick in the draft, the Cleveland Guardians select Jet Williams, a high schooler from Texas. He is a shortstop outfielder. I believe he can start in the dirt and could eventually push out to the outfield with the depth that Cleveland has in the minor league system. Love the bat to ball skills that he brings to the table, plus speed too. Getting 92 on the mound, so you're getting a pretty good arm there too from the outfield or from shortstop. I know he just gets average grades from scouts. I think some of that's due to accuracy, but that arm will definitely play up if he's out in center field like I think that he can. For Cleveland, being a model-driven team, feels like they could go a number of ways this year, specifically picking at 16. They've not picked this high since 2016 when they had the 14th pick, and they went Will Benson there. I suspect this will be an underslot pick, whoever they go with, but was very tempted to go after Zach Neto, who's been linked to the Guardians a number of times by various outlets. But Jet Williams was a good opportunity for the organization to go for a middle of the diamond player here that we feel could be a top of the lineup dynamic player for the organization in the near future.
Yeah, Jet Williams is the exact mold of the type of player that Cleveland takes. But to your point, they usually go the Jet Williams route. Round 2, round 3, round 4. You look at the Milan Tolentino types. It's kind of like that, except it's definitely more physical. He's got the hit tool. He's got the raw power. Not a lot of people kind of expect that from the frame. But another thing with Jet that people really don't give enough credit for is he can play shortstop, and he has an absolute cannon for the position. So I want to get another evaluator in here, old friend of the show, my old co-host, Jeff Ponce. What's going on, Jeff? Baseball America's Own.
What's going on, guys? How are you?
Good. Jet Williams off the board here, 16. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great pick. And I think, sort of the last thing that you said was something that, I was going to sort of bring up specifically on Williams, and that is the ability to stay up the middle and potentially provide value at a variety of positions. So I think it's an actual skill set that a team could potentially try to hone. his ability to potentially play shortstop. They could stick him in center. He's plus in center field now. He has that arm, as you mentioned. Plus runner, a ton of pop, despite being a little bit shorter in stature, a little bit more diminutive in terms of, just size. But he's strong, he's powerful, twitchy, and has the up the middle profile that a team with event like Cleveland in particular values. So I think it's a spot on pick. It's the rich getting richer. They draft pitchers and they draft middle infielders and fill it in the international market.
Yeah. Willie, it's always a pleasure, man. Love your picks. I think you hit the nail on the head as always.
Thanks, Joe. Love the jacket.
All right. All right, Jeff, we'll jump into this in just a second here. While Jeff is
I got kids that decided to run down here all at
You're good. I want to go over the first 15 picks with you because I think in a lot of ways it's been chalk, but in a lot of ways there's been some surprises. We'll go over these first 15 picks here. Top 5, anything here stick out to you as a surprise? Do you have a favorite pick?
Yeah, I think the Prelip pick was a bit of a surprise for me. It could just be a personal sort of bias thing, but I hadn't heard of him going, as high as 10. There's other, hurt or independently college arms that I think would be just as interesting there. So that one threw me off a little bit, just based on what my draft board was. But hey, Prelip, has skills, and if you believe in the stuff and the fact that it's all the way back, then I guess I could understand it as well. My favorite pick so far, I think, is probably between Jet Williams at 16 and, going to play favorites here a little bit with Mr. Sikowski at 12 and Gavin Cross. I thought that was a tremendous value. I think, if we had drafted this and shook up the order and, you have 10 different owners in the top 10, a few different ways. I think that Cross probably goes in the top 10 a lot of the time. So a couple of picks that were just off chalk, I think sort of dropped Cross down there. And I know Brian's a Tigers fan. So certainly he probably wants that to happen in real life and see Cross drop to 12. So I think it's been really interesting so far. And Noah Schultz going to Diego was not a surprise whatsoever. I anticipated that.
Yeah, he's a big Schultz guy. And I do just want to say, if we can kick back to Jeff and I, Brian, you don't have to stick around. I do appreciate the mood lighting, though. It's my brand. All right, let's jump into pick number 17. I got to remember who we're going to here. All right, so Philadelphia Phillies. We're welcoming in a new guy to the show. We've got Tim Kelly Sports, man. Tim, welcome on. I'm excited to see where you go with this pick because I think a lot of people have the Phillies just kind of chalk for a college outfielder or a high school pitcher. I'm wondering if you feel the same way.
Well, I know there's been a lot of buzz about Gabriel Hughes, but I kind of worry about his upside as a starter. So in the first 2 years of the Brian Barber regime, the Phillies have gone back-to-back high school arms, and I have them going with another high school arm, Brandon Barriera, out of American Heritage High School in Florida. He will be kind of the lefty in the rotation that over the long run, he's going to complement Mick Abel and Andrew Painter, and perhaps Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler still in the rotation by the time he reaches the major league level.
I dig it. Perhaps the best athlete on the mound in this entire class. Another guy with a potential plus breaking ball. Jeff, I want to ask you this specific question because it's something that is a bit of a forte for you, and that's pitch shape, that's pitch design. I think one of the critiques on Barriera to this point has been, is it a fastball that as it moves up the ladder can miss enough bats? Where do you stand on this? And another part of the question is, in your opinion, how easy is it for these guys, these young prospects, to change their fastball shape as they develop?
Yeah, I mean, as for changing fastball shape, I've never been someone who's been able to work with someone and actually coach them on something like that. So that's probably, a better question for a driveline guy or something like that. But I don't think it's necessarily the easiest thing possible. It's probably easier to add velocity. We've seen that happen more frequently. But I think with the thing with Brandon Barrera is he has fastball velocity. He has shape on a really good secondary. I think he's flashed the changeup enough. And as a left-hander, it's something that I think that would probably be my primary focus of development would be to have two different pitches that he can use, against, offhanded batters and, left on left situations, with the breaking ball. And really the fastball at that point doesn't necessarily have to be a great bat misser. It just has to avoid trouble zones. I think he does a good job moving east to west just in general in terms of his slider and fastball combination and kind of what the movement profiles are there. As to, I haven't seen specific data on him. So, as to if he would move more toward like a cutter shape or a sinker shape, I don't necessarily know. But I think there's avenues for a guy who maybe doesn't have a lot of hop on the fastball, but just because of the type of slider that he has, and I think the projection with the changeup, you kind of want to more focus on can he get swings and misses with the secondaries, get ahead with his fastball, use his fastball to get ground balls or pop-ups or just bad contact. And then it's a really useful pitch. And that's a successful sort of roadmap to starting potentially. And, the Phillies, I think, if the development continues to go in the direction that we've seen, at least recently with some of the recent returns with pitchers that have come even from the college background into their organization and seen some gains from the command perspective and just being able to, sort of see the cake bake a little bit more. It's like guys like Griff McGarry, I think, were very half baked in college in terms of you'd see the great stuff. Some days it wouldn't be there. And now there's a lot more consistency there. He's getting success. I know Ben Brown is another one that's seen a lot of success from that side as well. And then you have Abel, and then of course what Painter has really been so far in pro ball is, one of the best pitchers in that draft, which at this point looks like it had a lot of really nice pitching prospects come out of it. So yeah, I think it's a great pick. I think it's right in line with what the Phillies were doing. I think I was kind of just, looking through the draft order a couple nights ago and looking at the board and kind of thinking about, who I know certain teams like and don't like and what guys could go in a particular direction. And I thought that, Barrera kind of fit that mold a little bit. So it's a good one.
Yeah. And let's be clear, Mick Abel and Andrew Painter, neither one of them necessarily had metrically appealing fastballs. They were all up to 97, 98, 99. I know Painter touched 101. Barry Harris touched 99 too in side sessions. So it's an extremely talented arm for my money. And, I think Sikowski has said this previously. He's an extremely impressive athlete on the mound. It's great clay. It's an extremely fast arm. So I think you're going to be really happy with this pick, Tim. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. I will say I did consider Kumar Rocker, but I think he's not going to have a physical before the draft. And the Mets saw something that was so bad that they didn't even offer him. That turned me off because the Phillies are a team that has not developed enough from within, and I worry about the results. I think there's a scenario where Kumar Rocker's pitching in the postseason next year, and there's also a scenario where you don't really hear much from him once he's drafted. So that's kind of what turned me off.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah. He's kind of the enigma in this class. You don't know where he's going to go. He could go top 10. He could, potentially fall out of the top 36, I guess. We'll have to see. But Tim, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for joining us tonight.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. All right, Jeff, let's jump into pick number 18 and the Cincinnati Reds. Let's get Wick in here. Wick, how are we doing, man? You've been in the waiting room for a while. I appreciate your patience.
No worries whatsoever. Thank you guys for having me.
Cool. RedReporter.com. Wick Terrell. What are we doing here, man? I think the Reds kind of, they like to go in a lot of different directions.
They do. It's almost as if their draft kind of started over the winter. They had such a huge, shedding of payroll and whatnot. But when they did that, they targeted so many arms in the process and brought in guys like Chase Petty and Connor Phillips, even Brandon Williamson as well. And so I feel like they kind of addressed a lot of the future of their pitching rotation by bringing in a lot of that. And they got some very good arms, very talented arms in that. So when you look at where they are in this particular draft, pick 18, but also pick 32, I think they have the 8th highest draft bonus in this particular draft at like just under $11 million. They're a team that has often gone high floor with their first pick and tried to swing back and get a higher upside high school guy afterwards. They did it with Jay Allen. They've done it with Taylor Trammell before. I'm kind of following that model with them this year. And admittedly, I don't feel like I have an exact idea what they have going on in their front office with this particular set of draft picks. So I kind of fell back on the model they've used in previous years. And so I went with Drew Gilbert out of Tennessee, who is I don't want to label him high floor guy, because what he did between his sophomore and his junior year at Tennessee showed a whole lot of progression in where he was as a college back coming out of the SEC in a way, hopefully, that might mimic the way that Jonathan India kind of made that second step when he was with Florida a couple of years ago as well. So I also want to hope that it's not one of these issues where I'm kind of stepping into drafting for need, because that's something you never want to do at this particular place in the draft. But it's one thing when you have a need, and another thing when you have an obvious void. And when you look at where the Reds are with their outfield situation right now, they don't have anybody I think they can really bank on at this point in time. They've got a lot of infield talent that they could potentially move up over the next year or two. And they've got a lot of guys who have a lot of tools, but a lot of question marks as well. I feel like Gilbert is kind of the perfect fit for giving them a known quantity who should be able to stick in center field. He's got great on-base skills, and his StatCast metrics over the last year were tremendous. And also potentially give them enough money to be able to be more aggressive at pick 32, which I know we're not getting to tonight, but it's something that I feel like the Reds would have to certainly consider if they were making this pick in real time.
Yeah, so this is from the regionals in 2021, and this was before Drew Gilbert was Drew Gilbert. And I admittedly, not necessarily a Tennessee fan, I stood up and screamed when he hit that grand slam. That was one of the craziest college baseball homers I've ever seen. I think Drew Gilbert is a culture guy. He's a glue guy. He's the type of guy that can kind of force a team to act a certain way and focus on winning night in and night out. I think he presents some extraneous value in that regard. Jeff, I know you're a Gilbert guy. What do you think of him?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like, we had started to hear kind of early on in the college season that though Jordan Beck's performance was good and he was moving up, there were still a lot of evaluators that had Gilbert over Beck. And I think as the season sort of wore on, that became more of a common and consensus opinion. A lot of the stuff that Wick touched on, I think, is spot on. The ability to, play center. And, if you can play center, you could probably play all three outfield positions. There's a lot of value in that, and just in general versatility. I think the culture element you brought up, guy, sort of plays with his hair on fire. It's full speed all the time. He cares. That's an issue if you go to a lot of minor league games. I think especially for high-level SEC players, guys go from playing in front of huge crowds in Arkansas and LSU, Mississippi State, Mississippi, et cetera, to then sort of going to Beloit. And no knock on Beloit, but you're playing in much less intense environments. It's different, and you have to maybe deal with some of the elements, things like that. So I think he's the kind of guy that you could put this guy in a backyard, sandlot league, and, he's going to hit 300, hit some tanks, play some good defense, probably get in a couple of fights with umpires. And yeah, I mean, overall, I don't think there's any question that this guy's a ball player, going to have a major league role. It's just, do all the skills sort of come together, and can he be an above average regular, make some all-star teams, or is he just going to be a really solid outfielder for a lot of years at the major league level? I think, that's sort of what you're looking at with Gilbert. I've heard a Lenny Dykstra comp, and that wasn't meant in a negative way. I don't think he's going to, commit tax fraud or anything like that. More in the sense of if you remember Dykstra, really hard nosed, could run, could hit a little bit, and
for sure fraud. Yeah, I've heard the Jared Kelenic thing. I've heard Cole Calhoun. I've also heard, when does he slow down to the point where he's Cole Calhoun? But Wick, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Drew Gilbert, despite his 5'11", 190, 6 foot 195 size, hits the ball damn near as hard as Jordan Beck at his peak. So ton of bat speed, can really run. The arm is an asset in center field. And, a hamstring kind of slowed him down this year. That's why I don't think he stole as many bags as he probably could. But this is a guy that you're getting here in the 18th, 19th pick that could be a 15-15 guy. maybe a 2020 guy if he's able to stay healthy and stay fleet of foot. So I like this pick, man. Drew Gilbert's one of my favorite players in this draft.
Yeah, if we can get the Brett Gardner upside would be tremendous, and then if we can get him signed for a slot or even potentially slightly below slot and get a little bit more aggressive at 32, that'd be tremendous as well. I mean, there were a number of different ways that I thought about going with this. Seeing Neto slide a little bit, he was very much on my board. I actually had him in my I don't think he's going to be here section anymore, and it kind of came down between the two of those to make that pick. But Gilbert's the guy who maybe it was just because I kind of thought he would be there and I got so focused on him. But he was also very high on my list as well. And I didn't think he would be here potentially. So to get him at this pick is something we're comfortable with. And hopefully all those upside things we just talked about are what would happen in this scenario.
Absolutely, man. All right, Wick, we will have you back next year. I appreciate your time and talk to you soon. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's get back one of the OGs. Melissa Lockhart's been doing this with us for a few years now, of The Athletic, picking for the Oakland A's. Melissa, I texted her, I tweeted you earlier today. You do have an affinity for the Bay. You like to go for high upside players from the Bay. The Bay is pretty stacked again this year, and I'm interested to see if Oakland goes in that direction.
Yeah, I think in real life, that's probably a decent possibility. I think they've been attached to a lot of college outfielders, and there's two of them in the Bay Area, and Dylan Beavers and Brock Jones that I think, they're going to be looking at pretty closely. However, Zach Neto's still on the board here. I don't see them passing him up if he's still there. He's exactly the kind of player that they've targeted. They apparently never will ever draft a pitcher in the first round ever again. So, you could take all those guys off the board, and this wouldn't have been the year to do it anyway. But, he's a guy, he's a really good athlete. He already plays a number of different positions. This swing setup's a little weird, but he's shown that he can make a lot of contact. He controls the strike zone well. His makeup's really good. He can run. Maybe he doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but he's going to get a lot to the gaps. I think, with power there. He plays in an area of the country they scout very, very well. So I don't see them letting him get past them if he's there. And he becomes Campbell's first round pick, which is pretty cool by itself. But, in real life, I think there's a decent chance that a Cal or a Stanford player comes their way.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. This is my favorite pick of the draft so far. I think Zach Neto could go as high as the top 7 or 8 picks. And it's unconventional, but man, he's a good player. And Jeff, I know you've seen a lot of Zach Neto. So talk to me about what you've seen on the Cape and what the upside is here.
And I think, and Will can correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually think a majority of this video you're showing is after he busted his ankle. I think he sprained his ankle, came back for the playoffs with Brewster, played shortstop, moved Trey Faltini off of shortstop. I think that needs to be said, with a hurt ankle, and was playing through that. And the swing was a little bit off. The timing was a little bit off, but, had some gutty performances. They won the Cape Cod League championship. I love Zach Neto. I was on this first week of the season. And he's a guy since last summer. I've been saying this guy's going to be moving up boards. Him and Eric Brown. These guys are going to be legitimately good professional players. I don't care where they go in mocks or where they go in ranks. And Neto is the guy in particular because it's moved up. He's got a plus arm. He's really good. He's going to stick at shortstop, I think, long term. He's twitchy. He's got just instincts. He's got hands. I think there is power and explosiveness. I swear to God, he probably would have led the Cape Cod League in home runs had he played a full season and not gotten hurt. It was trending that way. He already had 3 bombs. He hit a bomb in the game at Chatham where he ended up getting hurt. And this is a guy that I think people forget this. And this is something that Josh Norris always brings up when we talk about Zach Neto internally, at Baseball America, is that park in Zebulon where he plays crushed Yordan Alvarez's power. It hurts power production. So I think there's more there, especially if you get him into, some of these parks when he's in AA, in the Texas League, Cal League. You're going to see, I think, Neto probably blossom. And he's exactly what they need, because I think that this is a better version of what they have with Logan Davidson, though I know he's recovered a little bit this year. And, kind of buys them a little bit of time with Max Muncy as to what he's really going to develop into. But I think Neto is a slam dunk major leaguer. I love this kid. This is also my favorite pick in the draft. And I probably could have come onto this broadcast and just told you, Joe, whoever takes Zach Neto while I'm on air is going to be my favorite pick in the draft. So there you go.
I'm glad I could have
that checks a box, Melissa.
That's perfect. It'll get better feedback than my picks last year. So
I like I think I was one of the big fans of your Kai Bush pick. I thought he went totally
good.
slept on. That was a good one. That was a good pick. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, you're going to be welcomed back next year. You always kick the crap out of this. So nice work.
well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
All right. We'll see you. All right. On to the 20s. We're going to get Battery Power Zone Eric Cole in here. Eric, what is going on, man? I'm excited to see where Atlanta goes. They're a college pitching factory. What are we going to do here?
Well, that's what I thought I was going to be doing too. Whenever I was going to get to this pick, I was having to think about Gabe Hughes, Connor Jerpy, whether or not I was going to pull the trigger on Cade Horton, who I think, if you're just looking at pure stuff from what he did in the College World Series, he's probably the best college pitcher in the class, right? But unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen, because with the 20th overall pick, the Braves are going to be selecting Jacob Berry out of LSU. I am genuinely surprised that he's still on the board. Switch hitting college bats that you put sixes on for both hit and power. I don't care if he'll never play at the field, if I'm just going to be honest about it. With the NLDH in effect right now, you can find a place to play that bat. Maybe you can stick him in left field if you're feeling really adventurous. If you want to spell Matt Olson at first base, third base, whatever. This type of bat doesn't fall to this level of the draft very often, and I was genuinely surprised. Now, I will say, with Jacob Berry still on the board, I was surprised that I still wasn't going to pick him until Melissa took Neto, because Neto is genuinely a really good prospect, and I like him a lot. And that defensive premium certainly has a lot of value there between those two guys. I was genuinely surprised that where I was picking here at 20, that Berry was still on the board, and it was a pretty easy pick for me, and it kept me from having to make a tough decision on these college starters.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on how you evaluate talent. If you just care about the hit tool and you just care about a guy moving quick and he's definitely a big leaguer, Jacob Berry's your guy. This is a great pick. I think there's a great chance he could go in the top 5, 6, 7, or 8 picks, and it just depends on who says they don't care about the defense and it's all bad. So, Jeff, where do you land on Jacob Berry? Because I think it's a bit of a divisive profile in terms of the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I'll say here is at pick 20 for a team like Atlanta, I do like the value. I think that, not that I was a zealot or anything like that, but I think I was a little bit more vocal about him not really being a top 10 player in this draft, where I think there are a lot of good college bats, some talented high school arms, and talented high school position players I just felt fit better into that top 10 to even 15 range. But I think when you get into the back end of the teens, into the early 20s, Berry here is good value. And, as he said, if you don't care that much about the defensive value, you're just like, hey, this is a guy that we could have, as an everyday DH, or at least in the picture in the next, 18 months, then I think you make the pick. And especially when you're a playoff team like Atlanta is, to kind of get a couple of guys that are a little bit closer, because I think that's where there's some gaps in the system right now, to be able to have, some of that backfill at AA and AAA, where a lot of that talent's been depleted because those guys are in the major leagues, or just the draft classes and international bonus penalties that they had to endure. I think that, getting some guys that move a little bit quicker makes a lot of sense. Probably better trade assets as well. If we go back to last year and Ryan Cusick, kind of a similar thing where he could be a reliever pretty quickly, and they were able to trade him off.
And there's also, the playoff contention window is something that I had to strongly consider too. It's that the Braves have been really one of the reasons they've been going after these college pitchers is that they want reinforcements quickly for that rotation, right? The issue I have with picking one of those college pitchers right now is that they have no shortage of guys that are like number 4, number 5 type prospects, right? Like those are the guys that they have at AAA. They have some of those at AA too. No, not necessarily frontline guys. And I don't see a frontline guy that I'm enamored with right now on the college board, unless I'm really buying into Cade Horton. And the one thing about Cade is that, yes, he was amazing in the College World Series. Based on pure stuff, he would make a ton of sense here. But what I'm hearing is that
he's going to be very expensive for a type of guy who's popping up without much track record in college. And if he's that expensive and he's really risky, maybe he's trying to leverage the fact that he could go back to school and prove that he could be a top 10, maybe even top 5 pick next year. And if he looks like he did in the College World Series, that's where he's going to be. You know, I at that point, I'm a little bit more scared off that type of pick, and I'm not enamored with the other arms. So I'm going to go with the more, I see a big league bat, switch hitter. You know, again, you can play him DH. You can figure out a position for him if you're willing to live with the fact that you're not exactly going to have a defensive wonderkind out there once he's out there. So overall, I'm just going to take that production, take that college bat, and be happy with it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think a lot of big league organizations would agree. If you're picking at 20, get the big leaguer. You know, just get the big leaguer and don't take the unnecessary risk. But I love the way you thought through this. I think it's a really sound reason. So again,
Thanks,
if you have not read stuff at Battery Power, the Brave site, you got to go check it out. Battery Power is among the best sites out there as it pertains to just team blogs. So keep it up, my man.
I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. All right, we will jump. So we're going to do the last 5 picks here really quick. Jet Williams, Brandon Barrera, Drew Gilbert, Zach Neto, Jacob Berry. Honestly, man, I like all of these picks a lot. I think they make a lot of sense, Jeff.
Yeah, this is like kind of the point in the draft. Like I think we're going to see now in the back half of the draft where a lot of the value is really there because there's so many guys that are bunched up at top. And then it kind of is like this group from maybe you want to say 5 to 6 all the way out to like 30 where there's like a lot of different variants depending upon evaluations. And like the guys that can hit maybe have questionable profiles. There's a lot of high school arms that are in the area that might be considered to be more of the high upside pick. So I just think it's a fun draft in that sense that there's a lot of different directions that, you know, the actual draft and this mock could go over the next, 10 or so picks.
All right, so we will move to, I said we were only going to keep you on for 16 to 21, but now I feel obliged to bring you on through 22. So we're going to see what the Cardinals do here in a minute. But let's get John Troopin in from Lookout Landing. John, how we doing, man? My good old friend.
We're doing all right. It's good to see you. I thought the segue was going to be speaking to people with questionable profiles, but I appreciate you drew it out a little longer. That was very polite of you.
It's what I do, man. It's all. I think you were wearing the same shirt last year, though. So maybe I can catch up with that.
I do have.
Do you ever leave your log cabin?
No, absolutely not. Have you seen outside? They got bears and things. No, I'm in here.
John, pick number 21, the Seattle Mariners. They went kind of off the board last year with Harry Ford, a very different pick. Are they going back to their college pitching roots here?
They are indeed. I loved the Harry Ford pick last year. I was certainly surprised by it, but at this stage, a number of the people who the Mariners might have been targeting, I think, are off the board, at least in terms of position players. So I've got them going with right-handed pitcher Justin Campbell out of Oklahoma State. He's a big old boy. He's got a lot of characteristics that I know the Mariners value, and I think the Mariners would target at this stage, and honestly would prize given the alternatives. He's had a good command. He's showcased 4 pitches. Now the best of those pitches, probably the fastball and the changeup. I like the 12-6 curveball. Definitely the slider could use some work, but is there at least, and is something he's actively being better about incorporating. But I think that this is the type of player that the Mariners have brought in and have really made the most of in the past several years.
Yeah, tall, long, fastball up to 97, feel for spin and a breaking ball. It really does sound a lot like the Logan Gilbert, George Kirby starter kit. Jeff, what do you think about Justin Campbell? I know he checks a lot of metric boxes.
Yeah, no, Campbell's a really interesting arm overall. I think even beyond like the metric stuff, it's like a crazy fastball or anything like that, but he has sort of some unique characteristics. But I think the thing with him is, he's a two-way guy. And I think, you look at the body, You just look at the skill set, the pitchability, even like he has a lot of foundational skills and characteristics that I think with, professional PD, where he's going to be focused entirely on pitching for a few years, the development over the first couple of years in pro ball could be really impressive. I think, especially when you look at his frame and the fact that, I'm working actually on an article right now on this, but guys add velocity. On average, they're adding, over a mile an hour to 2 miles per hour of velocity, especially guys who are college starters. Once they get into pro ball, the high level top 50 picks or so over the last 3 drafts have all added around 2 miles per hour. Some guys have added as much as up to, 3 to 5 to even 6 or 7. So I think there's a possibility here for more power, especially when you look at the build. This is a twice drafted guy that was drafted by the Astros, I think back in 18th round, if I'm not mistaken. So like the Campbell pick a lot. And, I think that he's a really, really projectable arm, and, looking a few years down the line, could be a guy that we maybe look back on and say, oh, this guy could have been, should have been a top 10 pick. There's always a pitcher like that every year.
Yeah. A lot of building blocks. And I mean, you mentioned adding velo. It's kind of the book with Gilbert and Kirby. They're both touching triple digits and were drafted 92 to 93. So interesting pick, John. I definitely dig it. I think Seattle would do wonders with that at gas camp. So appreciate you joining us, man.
Absolutely.
And keep doing good work at Lookout Landing.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Yep. All right. Time for pick number 22 and the site favorite. Kyle, how we doing?
Oh, hey guys. Hi. How are you? Where's Jeff? Oh my God, it's Jeff. Jeff and Joe. How are you guys?
What's up, baby?
Same old. I just
What
thought
did I tell you? I told you our mock and chat roulette are 2 different days. Keep them separated.
Hey, look, I believe in teasing the chat roulette that we do. So this is just a tease of what you're going to get for that.
Oh my God, Kyle. All right.
Sorry.
Pick 22. Who we got?
I picked the outfielder out of James Madison, Chase DeLauter. I love him. He's big. He's a monster. He has injury issues, and that's the only thing that would keep him available for 22nd overall for the St. Louis Cardinals, in my opinion. There are some concerns about, by the way, ho, ho, ho. There are some concerns about, being a small school player, maybe it not manifesting as he works his way through the minors. But what he did on the Cape last year puts those concerns to rest for me. I love the athleticism. I love the speed. Give it to me. And then again, it says nothing of his sheer athleticism. Yeah, he's just a really gifted player, and I love the whole profile.
There's not a person on earth that likes Chase DeLauter more than Jeff.
Yeah, and just when I thought you couldn't get any more attractive, Kyle, you come on here and you say wonderful things about Chase DeLauter. I was firsthand. I got to watch, 10 to a dozen games. I hired the analytics guys from Orleans to come work for Prospects Live before I jettisoned to Baseball America. But I love that team. I love Chase DeLauter. I think when you look at the athlete, the body, just the lack of even like a track record outside of like the Cape somewhat. Like, his college season has been smaller. I got it missed 2020. I believe he's a 2-sport guy, smaller high school guy. So kind of fell off of some of those radars in terms of, recruiting, etc. But, if this guy had been born like a year later or whatever, and, he probably would have gotten caught up big time in this transfer, recruiting carousel and would have ended up at an SEC school or something like that. Everybody panicked after the first weekend when he saw 2 really tough lefties with no protection at all, a lot less protection than he saw even in the Cape. And, in a road series. And then all he did was, hit afterward up until the injury. And I think that there's things you can clean up. And the thing is, this is such a Cardinals pick where it seems like where they do best is sort of laying and waiting in this like 18 to 20 range, 25 range, and just taking the best player that dropped with the highest upside. And it's really paid dividends for them, even outside of the first round. I mean, we've seen, guys like Nolan Gorman now at the major league level. It's been a big win for them with Jordan Walker, who I think had big question marks for a lot of evaluators at that point. it's been the same thing to a degree with Mason Wynn, who's really taken giant steps forward as a contact hitter, as a power hitter, just as an overall player, as a position guy. And there's other examples as well. You look at a guy like Graceffo. I mean, they just do so well at like sort of finding these guys that fall into their laps. And I think there's some things made about their tech and stuff like that isn't 100% accurate. I think that the Cardinals need some credit for good player development. Every year they have like a crop of guys that get up to the major leagues and contribute. So, and it's not even necessarily top picks, but they've had a few of those recently that have really started to pan out.
Yeah, DeLauder, he fits their mold. That big power that kind of falls to them specifically. He's still a little older than 20 and a half years old, so still plenty of time to grow. Yes, that is Nicolas Cage back there. Hold on, let me see if I can do it without looking. That is getting closer.
You're close. You just got a little more.
I'm done. Wait, hold on. No, it's this, and this.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
My girlfriend gave that to me. Yeah, that's she knows me. What can I say? But no, he's
At
just
least
a
she's
perfect
there.
the other thing I'll say that goes in my mind is I love Eric Brown. I love him. I love everything about him. And depending on what kind of slot you'd have to give him and whatnot, man, there you go. There you go. I should have known, by the way. But I love him. And I understand that maybe at 22 it might be a reach. But if you can make the slot bonus work, man, I would. And I doubt DeLauder's there by the time the Cardinals draft. But like he's the guy that if he can make it to 59 when they draft, that'd be amazing. But I'd look in that direction. I love Eric Brown. I love Chase DeLauder. I think the Cardinals are in a good position with the 22nd overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. They watched Nolan Gorman fall into their lap. They watched who was the kid? Yeah, Jordan Walker. You brought up, Jeff. He wasn't expected to be there, so a great pick, Kyle. And you go take care of your elves. You go have a good night.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Kyle.
God bless you.
All right, Jeff. We'll get you out of here, man. It's been a pleasure getting a different evaluator here, but yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see who you take for the Red Sox, and it's been a pleasure, man.
Later.
All right, see ya. All right, I'm gonna get Jackson in here. Jackson, how we doing?
I'm doing well, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So Jackson is one of our, frankly, at Prospects Live, one of our best evaluators. I'm excited to hear his take on some of these picks. We've got what do we got? 5 or 6 picks here left to go. Let's see. We got 23 now with another rookie. I'm excited. This is quite a change after shirtless Kyle Reese. So let's get Brennan Delaney in here. Brennan, how you doing, man? And excited to have you on the show.
I asked in the group chat, I'm like, what do I wear? Like, is there a dress code? And I asked if I could be shirtless. I didn't expect the guy before to be shirtless.
Blazers are okay too. Brennan works with Jays Nation. So where are we going, man? I'm excited to see where you're going to go with this. I think Toronto is one of the more interesting teams as it pertains to models.
I'm going to go with the best player available. I think it has to be Kumar Rocker, if I'm being completely honest. He's still a former top pick, so he kind of still has that repertoire. He has 3 good pitches and a 4th one that could still be developed, and I think he's probably one of the most ready prospects out of anyone. So I think they don't have a lot of high minor players that are almost on the brink of making the team, and I think Kumar Rocker is maybe a year or 2 away. So,
Jackson, you've seen a good amount of Kumar Rocker. What's your evaluation on him? And I want to say the important part here, I think that everyone's asking, is do you trust the health at this point? Is this a good slot for the risk?
It's definitely, sorry, I'm not supposed to answer that, but there's definitely a health concern. But they went with Gunnar Hoglund in the 19th spot last season, so they're kind of risk adverse, but I can see them kind of put it away because they do have another 4 picks in the top 100 spots, and they picked Ricky Tiedemann 91st last season. So
true. Jackson, where you at? What do you think?
I'm going to be honest, Joe. I've never seen Kumar pitch live, but from what I know, his fastball, slider, and cutter combination goes, and this is something that we've been able to see starters succeed off of more instead of a classic like breaking ball, changeup, and a fastball. So because he's a power arsenal, that's going to suit him more at the big league level, and I think it's something that he can lean on to dominate and get hitters out. And that fits more of his style as a pitcher instead of trying to force a changeup or stick to classic pitching arsenal stereotypes.
How about philosophically? Where do you land on drafting pitchers with questionable medicals?
I would say I think it's a lot of dependent on how you value your doctors and how you evaluate your PD department, because the medicals exist in part because of a fault with their player development. So if you think that's a non-issue and that you can look past that, I would go for it. But it's not something that turns me away, but it's not something that inherently I gravitate towards when looking at an injured college pitcher. But if the stuff is there, there's no reason to overthink and make a big deal out of something that if it's nothing.
Yeah. Landon Kumar Rocker in the 20s, I think, like Prelip, like Landon Sims, you could end up with a number 2 starter here, and you might have gotten him for a crazy value.
Same with Hoagland last season. So.
Same with Hoagland, man. Brennan, it's a pleasure. We'll definitely have you back next year. I think you
appreciate the
made a pretty killer pick here. Absolutely, man.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah. So on to, let's see, we're going to pick 24. Oh, we get to get Jeff back right away. Right? Yeah. Going straight back to Jeff here with the Boston Red Sox pick. All right, my man. Welcome back. Where are we going here?
So welcome back. I am happy to announce the future ace of the Boston Red Sox, the best college pitcher in the draft. The best pitcher in the draft fell to me at 24, Cooper Jerpy out of Oregon State. This is the best fastball in the draft, regardless of what the velocity is. Average 90 to 92. He was up to 98 miles per hour. We feel with our PD department, we're going to be able to get the power behind this, have him sitting 3 to 5 by the time he's ready to start opening day in 2024. Tremendous slider. Huge sweeper, 16 plunge inches of sweep, good separation off of the fastball. Really good changeup that he, was his primary pitch as a sophomore. And, this is a guy that's a developed starter. We saw what he could do, really put the team in his back. I think, is probably, like I said, the best college pitcher in the nation this season. 103 innings, 161 strikeouts, sub 0.9 whip. Sub 3, 2.5 ERA, 11-2. He's a gutsy kid. Tried to go out there and pitch when he was sick. We just think he's a leader. We think he's an ace, and we're just happy that we're restocking arms. I think I was between Kumar Rocker here. Really wanted to get Jerpy. Hope somebody took Rocker ahead of me, so didn't have to make that decision. I'm really thankful to our division mates and the Blue Jays for doing such. They can take that risk, so. We're really happy here with the pick, and I think if you know me, this is like my favorite player in the draft. So let's go Sox.
Yeah. Well, I know Jackson is huge on Jerpy as well. Jackson, what do you think?
Oh, I'm a big Jerpy guy. I also, like what Jeff, think he's the best college pitcher in the draft, hands down. I've seen him pitch 2 summers ago, and then his growth compared from there to now is insane. I love the fastball, the slider, and the changeup. He optimizes all of his pitches really well and how he attacks hitters. He knows his fastball plays well up in the zone. He gets whiffs. He dominates there. His slider can be used on the back foot in any count, and he pitches to that. So he has like a great inherent combination of natural pitchability, knows his arsenal strengths, and his stuff is metrically insane. So I'm wholeheartedly supporting Chaim Bloom in this pick.
I love it.
Yeah, we talked to Paul. We talked to Chaim Bloom. We're excited to get this guy in the organization and get Brian Abraham and his people behind him. So. Yeah, it's exciting.
Totally.
If Jerpy is 3 to 5, he's an ace. Like he's going to be.
I'm saying, it's the thing that guys like this, looking at this, the study that I did, a lot of it was sort of driven by like Cooper Jerpy and my love for him and the questions around the velocity. And it's like some of these guys with like unusual arm slots that have a ton of pitchability. And it's just a matter of maybe adding a little diet. Could be like something as random as sleep, like the things that you hear when you're kind of digging in as to like, what did this guy do that he added velocity? It's across the board. I think there's a lot of different things. Once someone's in a pro PD environment and they're a millionaire, that, things change a little bit. Like, Kirby, as you mentioned before, Matt Brash is a guy that added a ton of velocity as he entered pro ball. Spencer Strider is a guy that's been really successful in terms of adding velocity, and there's numerous others. So I think with a guy like Jerpy, especially just he moves really well on the mounds, and maybe there's a little bit less concern with injuries, despite the fact that maybe he's not ramping it up to 98 miles per hour like Kumar is, or some of the other guys that I would have considered at this pick that are still out there on the board that I think really would have been good choices that I'd be happy with here at 24.
Yeah, he's definitely a maniacal kid. He thinks of how he's going to go about embarrassing hitters. He spent a summer with Driveline. I mean, he's fully into this. He knows what he's capable of, and he knows how unique he is, and I think that's going to serve him well. So, Jeff, I dig it, man. I dig the pick.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump over to it's quite a dichotomy. We're going to jump over the New York Yankees here. Let's get Ricky Keeler in here. Ricky, welcome to the show. How are we doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Happy to be back with you again, Joe. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Pinstripe Pros, Elite Sports Northwest, Ricky Keeler. College bats. That's kind of been the New York Yankee way of late. Is that the route that we're going tonight?
Joe, I thought about it, and there's a couple names on the board that I was kind of between. Obviously, people can't ignore the Spencer Jones, Aaron Judge comp. That was hard to ignore here, but stayed away from that. Dylan Beavers from Cal was intriguing with the good plate discipline, raw power. But you look at this board, and for me, it was just too tough to pass on pitching and West Coast pitching because Yankees love to go find that West Coast pitching. So we're going to go with Gabriel Hughes, the right-handed pitcher out of Gonzaga. Fastball that can get up into the mid-90s that once Hughes is in the pitch factory down in Tampa, maybe it can get to about 99, 100, you would think. Good slider, good changeup, a competitor on the mound. And again, this is not uncommon for the Yankees to go with West Coast pitching. They love the West Coast Conference, going back to taking Ken Waldichuk in the late rounds a couple of years ago. Between Brendan Beck, Robert Alstrom, Chandler Champlain, they love to go out west. So to have this guy, and who's one of the top pitchers in the class, fall to 25, I think the Yankees would be hard-pressed to not ignore that here. And even though they do need outfielders, and there are some outfielders still left on the board, I think they could go for hitting a little bit later. I would take this kind of raw talent at 25 and go from there.
Yeah, I've seen Gabriel Hughes pitch a couple of times now, and despite his size, he is a big barrel-chested dude. He's an incredible athlete. I think he gets out of sync sometimes. I think the breaking ball kind of melts sometimes. And the fastball, he's still kind of figuring out if he's going to be a four-seam or a two-seam type of guy. But man, this kid is for as successful as a season as he had, he is still really green. He impressed a lot of people at the USCNT last summer, and I think this is an exceptional pick. I think Gabriel Hughes could definitely turn into a number 3 type of an arm, but he's got to continue throwing strikes. So, Jackson, you're a Northwest guy. What do you think of Gabriel? I think you saw him down in Southern California this year.
I saw him pitch at Fullerton this year in one of his first starts of the season. Like, naturally, it's a power arm with power stuff. I'm not crazy about his pitch metrics, but I do think that he's a true power arm. And like you mentioned, Joe, he does melt his breaking balls often, but with having faith in the Yankees player development department the last couple of years and how they've pumped out pitching, I think that matchup would be really, really great. And I also think that he should switch to his sinker because his four seam, I don't think is optimized well into the zone. I think that kind of more plays into like the kind of pitching role that he could be with heavy ground balls and getting power whiffs.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ricky, you always do a good job, man. I'm so excited we were able to get you on here. And another site, Pinstripe Pros, if you have the chance to go read up on the Yankees and just read up on Ricky's work and the prospects that they do, it's killer stuff. So thanks for joining us again, my man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, so we are going to do quickly we're going to go 1 through 25. We're going to go through them pretty quick. We're going to get Kyle Glazer in here from Baseball America. Kyle, welcome to the show, man. How we doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Excited to have you on the show. It's been quite a night. So we're going on 2 hours and 20 minutes. We're through 25 picks. There's been some surprises. There's been some chalk, I guess, at the top. We'll roll these 1 through 25 graphics, and I just kind of want your first impression. What do you think? What do you think of Termar Johnson at 2?
I mean, look, he's one of the best pure hitters in the draft. There's not a lot of question that there's a 70 grade hitter in there. It just kind of comes down to him versus Brooks Lee. For me, I'm going to take the guy who's also a 70 grade hitter who has done it at higher levels in college with a wood bat. And, Look, neither of these guys are shortstops, but Lee's a little more of a shortstop than Johnson is. So that's the one where I would take Lee over Johnson personally. I'm surprised to see Jackson Holiday not here in the top 5. The way he's played, everything we're hearing, he's not getting out of the top 5. He's probably not getting out of the top 3. I think that's one of the more interesting developments, just talking to evaluators out there. This 8 to 10 group, it's interesting. Connor Prelip is someone that is kind of divisive, to be honest. There are people who think he belongs in the 20s. Jace Young is a guy who's kind of sliding in a lot of people's eyes as well. I think there's some other players here, the Gavin Crosses of the world who are more likely to go in this 8 to 10 group than Prelip and Young are. But we'll see. Again, all it takes is one team and their personal preference, and different things will happen.
And how about this 11 through 15?
Yeah, I think Justin Crawford at 11, if going into the year, would have been a surprise, but it's not now. Him, Cole Young, and Jet Williams, all those high school hitters are being scouted in this 11 to 20 group and have a real chance to go 11 to 15. There's no question about it. Landon Sims, we'll see. Again, I would be surprised if he's the first college pitcher off the board. People are just higher on some other guys. Noah Schultz is one that, just speaking with evaluators throughout the game, was pretty much an arrow down guy. I don't know if he goes in the first round, and I think there's a real chance he ends up at Vanderbilt. I think in real life, if that happened at 15, that would be the most off-the-board pick that we've seen so far. Yeah, the move in here, again, I like Drew Gilbert at 18. That's an aggressive pick and a good pick. He's, a lot of people talked about Jordan Beck on this Tennessee team, but Drew Gilbert was the better player, both in SEC play and just overall better profile, just kind of better all around. Jacob Berry, I'm telling you right now, he's not getting to 20. He probably doesn't get out of the top 10. The guy can just hit. I know there's position questions. I know people don't like the defense, but guys who can hit like this, college hitters, those are the guys that move up the board, more than high school arms. He's going to go much higher. Justin Campbell at 21, I like. Cooper Jerpy, 24. We're seeing the run of college pitchers here: Campbell, Rocker, Jerpy, Hughes. I would not be shocked if frankly, all 4 of those guys go ahead of Landon Sims and Connor Prelip. People are really, really high on all these guys. They're all really talented. They all have question marks, but I think that's a very real possibility. The college pitcher group is bunched together. There's not a ton of separation. They can go a lot of different ways.
All right, so that's 1 through 25. I know James will appreciate this. He's up next for the Chicago White Sox. If you had, and this isn't like who you think the White Sox would go with, but if you were picking at 26 and you had the 26th pick in the draft, based on who's still there, who would you go with here? Did that come through? Can you hear me?
Sorry, you said James. You mean Kyle?
Oh, no. James is next on the board. I'm sorry. He'll be in just a minute.
Okay.
So with the Chicago White Sox pick at 26, where would you go with this next pick?
It really depends how much you like Daniel Susac. He's a divisive player in that, look, he's a really good catcher, really, really runs a pitching staff well. But he's a 45 grade hitter. That's the truth of it. How comfortable are you taking a less than average hitter with your first round pick? For some teams, they say if it's a catcher, good defender, they do it. We see teams do that a lot. Shea Langoliers is a 40-ish grade hitter, and he went in the top 10 because the defense was so good. Patrick Bailey was the same deal, and turns out he's more of a 30 grade hitter, as we're seeing in pro ball. So teams will pull that trigger. It wouldn't surprise me if it's Susac. For me, the guy I'm looking at is Jacob Melton. Look, the swing is not ideal. It's not what you'd, put up there as a model swing, but it works for him. It's center field, it's power, it's speed, it's explosive athleticism, it's performance. That's a guy that I think sometimes in the draft we get caught up in, I don't know, breaking down every little thing. And sometimes you have to take a step back and say, hey, this works for the guy. And he's a really good athlete and a good player who's performed at a high level at a premier program. That for me would be the guy here once you start talking in this back of the first round range that I'm looking at and would probably take.
I love it, man. Kyle, thank you for joining us tonight, giving us some of your evaluation and analysis on 1 through 25 and a little preview into 26. So appreciate it, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. All right, James, you got to follow that up. Is it Jacob Melton?
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. No, I'm taking Tucker Tolman. Acting as a little bit myself and what I think the White Sox would do here. I mean, I think Drew Gilbert, if he gets here, could be the guy. He went at 18. They could go college pitching. I think Rick Hahn's college pitching light will be going off for sure because they don't have much. But I think, they really like Tucker Tolman from what I've heard. Colson Montgomery last year, that's been successful so far. I know that, Mike Shirley likes prep players. He really considered Soderstrom the year before, and they took Garrett Crochet instead. So I think they go here with this pick, and then you can just load up on college pitching. Maybe even second round, and then the rest of day 2.
Yeah, I think I think the strength of college pitching is definitely. I guess maybe the value of college pitching is in rounds 2, 3, and 4. James does killer work at Future Sox. If you haven't checked out his stuff, it's really good. Jackson, what do you think, man?
Of Tucker, from what I've heard, and the White Sox do like to evaluate high athleticism in high schoolers. So from what I know and how they evaluate, this pick would make sense. Tolman has a very loose swing and good athleticism. And in the past, regardless of a high schooler sticks at shortstop or not, they usually translate well into being a true big league player. And they're the most dynamic demographic to target in the high school ranks, targeting guys up the middle. So for playing, it's a great combination of attacking the ceiling and getting a floor of what you think will translate to a true big league talent. Impact depend on the development.
Absolutely. James, I had a feeling you were going to go with Tolman. I know that you've been high on him for quite some time as well as Gilbert, but that's a good pick, man. And especially as a switch hitter, like the guy could play shortstop, but I think he's going to be a pretty dynamic third baseman.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously there's some defensive, I don't know if it's defensive question, but there's defensive uncertainty, right? Like, does he stick at third with more work there? I think probably, but like he's going to have enough bat if he needs to play left field. That's fine. So, I like son of a coach. He barrels balls. He understands his swing. It's the thing that I really like. There was some of that with Colson Montgomery. It was just such an unknown because he'd been a multi-sport athlete and didn't do a lot of the circuit stuff, but he looks pretty good. So,
yeah,
if they're going to go this route again in round 1, I will trust Mike Shirley here.
Yeah, and I would opine that Tolman has more bat speed than Colson Montgomery ever had. I mean, it's a pretty whippy bat. So, James, appreciate it, man. If this is the case, Chicago is really stocking up on some pretty impressive prep athletes. So, kudos, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. On to pick 27. Let's get James Anderson in here. James is an old-time friend of the show. He's been picking for the Brewers for some time now. I think there's some pretty interesting guys for the Brewers. And, you and I have talked about this on your podcast. Kind of got a feeling where you're going to go with this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. This is always one of the highlights of the year for sure. The Brewers, we have some strengths. We have some weaknesses when it comes to player development. We're still working to really develop some homegrown hitting, especially up the middle hitting, impact players that can play every day. We're not really into high school bats. We can develop our own arms. So we're actually going to go with who to us was the best college hitter on the board, which is Eric Brown out of Coastal Carolina.
Oh, that's a surprise. Okay, I like it.
I mean, it might not be, a pick that people expect to go in the first round. We might negotiate a little bit on the bonus, but, I think part of the reason why people don't view him as a first rounder is the setup, which has drawn comparisons to our manager, Craig Counsell. And, it's weird. Like when you first see it, it's weird. And, the size, he's 5'10", he's probably going to end up at second base. So that's a lot of reasons to move to a different player, but we need someone that can hit. We need someone that can stay up the middle. I think he's a really good athlete, and we love the body. Like, to me, 5'10" is a great baseball size. I think he's going to maintain his athleticism. He's really good at getting the barrel to the ball. And, even if he moves up, we might send him out as a shortstop, but I think he could be a plus defender at second base.
Yeah, or left field. I think there's been some talk of that, and you'd be kind of hard pressed to find someone in this draft that checks out metrically better than Eric Brown does. He checks a lot of boxes, and I know Jeff was a huge fan of him on the Cape, so he's kind of performed at every stop. Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, you saw him on the Cape too. What were your thoughts?
My thoughts, I didn't catch Eric Brown on his upswing on the Cape, but from what I remember, he moved with a lot of athleticism, kind of plays shortstop erratically, so I also agree that he won't end up there in the long term. But for hitters and pitchers, I'm all for weird and don't really care about if something's unesthetically off, because at the end of the day, the results matter. And Eric Brown does things unesthetically pleasing, but the results exist, and he's a great bat the ball guy, elite contact rates, hits the ball hard, finds the barrel. So I think it's a little short of evaluating just to evaluate how a guy looks when he plays, just without taking into account the results that he's producing. Because at the end of the day, Eric Brown is producing results, and that skill set will translate to pro ball.
Absolutely. James, I thought you were going to go with Beavers here. So a bit of a surprise, but man, I do like the pick. I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted Gilbert. It sounds like he probably wouldn't have gotten to me, but like I went into this exercise wanting Drew Gilbert pretty badly. Brown, maybe a guy that's there in with our next pick and in real life, but we got to get this. We got to be able to draft and develop our own position players. It's just at this point, it's become kind of a glaring weakness that a lot of people have noticed. And we have the pitching. We can do that. And to me, it's kind of like go for the hit tool, because a lot of the guys that the Brewers have taken in recent drafts, even high up, they've been guys with big tools where there's questions about the hit tool, or with Sal Frelick, maybe guys with lesser impact tools offensively, but they have some other strengths. And, I think Brown really kind of is the middle ground there. I think he has some impact potential, but I think he's kind of a safer guy too.
Love it, man. And if you follow Prospects Live, I'm sure you follow RotoWire at this point. James does fantastic work too. So, all right, James, we're going to get you out of here. Finish these last few picks that we've got here on the board. Who do we got now? Let's see. We are jumping over to the Houston Astros. And actually, the guy that was going to run the Astros pick tonight did come under the weather, so he's not going to be able to make it on this pick. But he was actually going to go with Daniel Susac, the catcher out of Arizona. I saw Susac once this year. I think Kyle hit on this pretty well. Really physical catcher, great throwing arm, above average power. There's a lot of chase and some swing and miss there. So I think you got to kind of bet on the fact that he's going to stay up the middle, that he's going to provide value behind the plate, and he's going to hit you 20 homers if you get him, 120 games. So definitely a Langoliers, Patrick Bailey type with a tick below that on the defensive side, but the raw power here is certainly substantial. Jackson, you got any thoughts on Daniel?
So Daniel came into the season with a lot of hype, and him and Parada had a long neck-and-neck race for who's to be the number one college catcher in the draft. But as the season progressed, Parada kept banging, and Susac kind of faltered. And then once the metrics came out, I do believe he got burned a little bit for, like you mentioned, his chase rates and his bat-the-ball skills, which, in all honesty, when drafting a first-rounder, you are going to be hesitant if the bat-the-ball skills are a little wishy-washy. So it makes sense why Susac might be experiencing a fall on draft day. And also, he does present great defensive value up the middle, but a question of that could be how will a possible electronic strike zone affect that? But Susac has shown that he can handle and manage a pitching staff, so those intangibles behind the plate would really play high value into him.
Agreed. All right, we've got 2 picks to go here, so we're going to jump over to Matt Germain. Matt, welcome back. Excited to see where you go with the Rays pick here. Always a bit of a crapshoot with them, but they do like athletes.
Yeah, it's been a different kind of team now, drafting with Kevin Ebosh as the senior director. The first year was kind of the COVID one. It was a short draft, so it was a little bit different. But last year, I think he really put his stamp on things, and he ended up going with 6 hitters as the first group that he selected. And then he went with 7 pitchers thereafter. So I think you're going to see the Rays use this kind of mythology again, where they think they can get the pitchers they want later in the draft. So I went with Peyton Graham out of Oklahoma. He's a shortstop, center fielder, third baseman, typical mold of what the Rays are looking for, a true leader. He was on the Baseball America College All-American first team. He's the type of guy that you want to build your team around, and who he's going to show up every day. You don't have to worry about grooming his personality. He's just a go-getter. He's the guy that the team rallies around, and to me, that's part of what the Rays core is in everything that they look for. This year he really blossomed. He had 34 stolen bases, just caught stealing twice. He could become a 5-tool guy, might be 4-tool because of the hit tool not really being there yet, but he could grow into it. And if he ever adds the muscle that his frame shows he could, oh man, he's a Christian Yelich / Tim Anderson profile. So we really like him.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I've said this before. I've tweeted it. I'll say it again. I think Peyton Graham is probably in the top 5 for the for the highest upside in this class.
Yeah.
If he can straighten out the hit tool and eliminate some of the swing and miss, I mean, this guy could be a starting shortstop at the big league level. And, maybe he's a 255 hitter that runs into 25 homers, but
yeah,
it's a plus run tool. It's a huge arm. It is, it's got some work to do in terms of development, but it's fantastic clay. So go. I mean, yeah, definitely go ahead, Jackson.
Oh, Graham last summer showed off a lot of raw pop, which did surprise people just because of how his frame is built, and just because he does not have a lot of muscle and body weight on right now. But he generates a high amount of bat speed, great extension through the zone, whippy hips. So there is a lot of raw power potential there. And like you said, it's great clay to work with, in that he could really blossom with the right PD department, and Tampa Bay could very well offer that. So I think a lot of his values depend on who drafts him and who's able to finish his project.
Yeah, he's just got a hit. I think everything else will click. I have heard some Trey Turner comparisons. I think the frame is very different, and I don't think the speed is there, but similar in the fact that when they came out of school, they were very, very slender bodied. You never knew if they were going to hit for much power, but if he goes on a trajectory that Trey Turner has, of course, this is an extremely strong value. But I love the pick, man. I think it's a perfect Rays pick.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure being on.
Absolutely. We always love having you. And I got to make sure to give you a shout out. Matt, go ahead and plug yourself if you want.
Oh, it's just at Matt 1T _ Jermaine _. That's
yeah,
it.
And he does fantastic work for prospects across the board, but he definitely has a specialty on that Rays organization. So Matt, you'll be back next year, man.
Awesome. I'll be looking forward to it.
All right,
Cheers.
We'll see ya. Let's finish this thing off. We are at almost 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's been a bit of a marathon, but hey, that's how these things go, right? I mean, you want to give everyone their due, and we're bringing back Roger Munter. Roger, how we doing, my man?
It's been a long wait, man. Winning 107 games kind of sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way. Okay, so I mean, we all know what the Giants care about in the draft. They're a high class organization. Dylan Beavers is still on the board. What are we thinking here?
Since Farhan Zaidi's taken over, their tendency is to go with college picks at the top, go a little underslot, spread it around later on a few different high school guys. After they went 9 pitchers in their first 10 picks last year, and with the decimation of the college pitchers, I didn't think they were going to jump into that pool this year. So I was kind of been sitting and waiting to see which of these college bats fell to me at the end. It turned out there were a bunch of them, and some of them I really, really like. Jacob Melton was particularly enticing, but in the end, I went with Spencer Jones out of Vanderbilt. Huge exit velocity, some of the best raw power, best exit velocity in the draft. The Giants are a models-driven team, but they also love athleticism and physical tools. This kind of harkens back to the Hunter Bishop pick, which was the first one of Farhan's regime. There's swing and miss there, but he actually has a really good approach. He doesn't chase a lot. It's just due to his size, the 6'8" size. You get, of course, some Aaron Judge comps, but I think he fits the data plus tools model that the Giants really value.
Yeah, and I would even go as far as to say he's reasonably untapped in terms of his offensive upside. I mean, this guy was a pitcher for his freshman year on campus, more or less. He wasn't a pitcher only, but that's where he put a lot of his effort, and then he was recovering from injury for much of that time. When I look at Spencer Jones, I look at a guy that, in college he has shown the ability to handle velocity at the top of the zone, and if he can learn to hit a breaking ball, and that's kind of the case with a lot of these college kids. If he can learn to hit a breaking ball, kind of like Peyton Graham, this could be a star just with some of the stuff that we know about him.
Yeah, and I think there's a group of guys here who all make sense for the Giants. Jones does, Melton does, Beavers does. The Giants like that NorCal connection, so Beavers does make sense. But I agree with you. There's untapped power here for Jones, and I think you get him into a smart development organization, and they could really turn him into a star.
Jackson, what do you think about that long-bodied outfielder and some of the data that backs it up?
Like mentioned before, his EVs are insane, lots and lots of raw power. But what's really underrated with Jones and what kind of like contradicts past stereotypes in big athletes is that big athletes aren't really known as raw athletic beasts. And Spencer Jones is an athletic beast, insane athleticism for his size. He moves well, can play right field great with a strong arm, but the athleticism really puts up his clay as a prospect and gives a lot of hope into a player development department and further refining the product that is Spencer Jones.
Roger, that's got to be up there in the top 5 for my favorite picks in this draft. It's been a fun one. We're gonna let you go at that point, but we're definitely gonna have you back next year. I know Brian works with us now, and he says he speaks wonders of you. So keep up the hard work, man.
Brian and I have kind of tag teamed this over the last few years. Thanks so much for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, so Jackson, that is 30 picks. Is there a guy that? Well, let me start with this. Who was your favorite pick in this draft?
Oh, easily Jeff taking Cooper Jerpy at 24. Great value. I just think that would be a great scenario for Boston. And I'm a really big Chase DeLauder and Cooper Jerpy guy, but I would think that Cooper Jerpy at 24 is the best value in the draft because I'm wholeheartedly a believer that he will add 2 to 3 more miles per hour on his fastball and pro ball. And we'll be very shocked if he doesn't. And just even that little velocity increase will do wonders on his pitching prowess on the mound. So that's easily my favorite pick, hands down.
If I had to pick, I would have to go. I think they were back to back actually. Zach Neto going to Oakland. I mean, that's a pretty killer pick, and I think that's exactly what Oakland needs right now. I think him falling to 19 or 20. That's a pretty good value, and I think he could end up being a stud. The other pick that really works for me was Drew Gilbert. I thought Drew Gilbert checked so many boxes for the Cincinnati. Was it the Cincinnati Reds? I think it was. I think he's the type of guy that can really kickstart what looks like a rebuild, frankly, in Cincinnati, kind of starting fresh with a whole bunch of new talent. Obviously, you never want to criticize some of these owners, but who was the most questionable pick for you?
Like on the opposite side of the spectrum from what Jerpy offers as a pitcher, Gabe Hughes is the exact opposite. And I myself am not wholeheartedly a believer that Gabe Hughes presents round 1 value as a prospect. I've heard from evaluators that they get him anywhere from round 2 to 3 grade, and even some entertaining him in the back end of round 1. There's just so many questions surrounding on how he's going to use his breaking ball and how they blend together. And then anything beyond that, does he offer anything special and inherent that another college pitcher doesn't to warrant him in the first round? So I would say that's probably the pick that I'm least in supportive of, but I'm supportive of all the picks that the owners made tonight.
That's a good answer. Very political. I think for me, the Landon Sims pick at number 13 for the Angels, that one caught me a little bit off guard just because there's a lot of injured pitchers in this class, and there's a lot of pitchers with a lot of upside. I was a little surprised that with a guy like Kumar Rocker still on the board, with a guy like, I mean, there were multiple, with Cooper Jerpy on the board, Gabe Hughes on the board. I'm a little surprised that that he would have been the pick, just because I think there's a better chance than not that Landon Sims is a reliever. And for me, I just wouldn't go with a reliever in the first round, even if you think he's a high leverage guy. We will end this thing with a couple graphics here really quick by our team. Based on our board, based on our top 500 board, and just to give a plug, we will be pushing out our top 600 board, I believe, on next Wednesday. That'll be the first iteration, and then we will update it one time before the draft, probably 72 hours beforehand. These are the guys that did not make it, that were not drafted tonight. Blade Tidwell was a top 20 prospect on our top 500 board. I think probably the shoulder surgery and maybe just the unfamiliarity and kind of getting hit pretty hard in the super regionals is what, or actually the regionals is what ultimately got him off of the owners' boards here tonight. Definitely surprised that Jordan Beck didn't get picked, because I mean, there were enough owners tonight that really valued prototype power, and he's got more of it than anyone in the class. So, Jackson, is there a guy that you were surprised wasn't picked?
I would say I was surprised Blade Tidwell wasn't picked while Landon Sims was picked, because I think you could argue that Blade Tidwell does translate as a reliever in pro ball. So when comparing the two demographics that they offer as a prospect, I don't think there's that many differences other than the fact that Tidwell has a higher chance of starting in pro ball. So seeing, I guess, in comparison, seeing Sims go and then Blade Tidwell not go in round one was one of the bigger surprises for me.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sound opinion. And Thomas Harrington, who was just shown on the board here, I'm a little surprised that he didn't get picked. I know Campbell doesn't have as much fanfare as some of these other schools, but he's as projectable and whippy and long, and the trajectory has been up and up and up and up for Harrington. That's a guy that I think, like with that Seattle pick, like Justin Campbell, Thomas Harrington, I think it's the same type of player in a lot of ways. Long body, long limbs. So I thought he would have made some sense there at the back third of the first round, but at the same time, there wasn't a pick in this first round that I was just totally not in support of. Like, I think all of these picks made sense and they were sound, and I could see all of them working out. So Jackson, man, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Any final thoughts? What a year.
What a year. It's been a entertaining draft year, and I've never been invested as much in the past years as this year. So I'm just ready for it to get going and just see everything that transpires, because there's just been such a crazy arc with the various tiers of talent being evaluated and detriments with injuries. So this is going to be one of the more clouded drafts, I guess, going into it than compared to years past.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, we have 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks until the 2022 MLB draft. Really excited to get this thing kicked off. And that Prospects Live is going to be, flooding you with coverage in terms of boards and mock drafts and articles and everything in between. So for every one of the guests tonight, whether that be an owner or an analyst or someone that, made a cameo or dropped by and just, gave their 2 cents about the entire process, we obviously hugely appreciate it. And we will catch you guys next year for the 2023 Prospects Live mock draft.
Sweet.